All right, we are live with another Pangburn open mic. It's Philosophy Day. Tuesdays are now Philosophy Days. Talk about God, theism, atheism, morality, free will, whatever you want. But I'm going to open up the room early here. We already got Dal Sue, Desired, Skeptic in the room. I'm going to invite everyone else. And I'm going to create a live stream here on Facebook as we get going. We were just shooting the shit about male genital mutilation. We can delve into that a little bit more in a bit. But also, Dal, you had a claim to make. I saw in the philosophy tab.
Yeah, I'm driving right now, so when I get home it'll be easier. But I wanted to try to make the claim that all things are one, which I think is going to be fun.
All things are one. Interesting.
All things are one.
We are the world. We are the children. We are the brighter day, so let's start giving.
Yeah, pretty much.
And is this a poetic claim? Is this a something you wish to build an equation out of? What exactly does the claim mean?
I wouldn't say equation. I would say it's a physical thing. Basically, the universe or the everything that existed before there were conscious actors and minds to perceive it and differentiate things. It would have acted in the way that it still acts, which is in the way that everything interweaves into each other. The law of conservation of energy, I think, is a big thing in my idea here, where that nothing actually is its own separate object. It bleeds into the
It's all connected
thing. Yeah, and I think that that connection is actual oneness. There's like two sides to the same coin, if that makes sense.
So there's kind of a philosophical oneness that is used, like the colloquial way of using oneness, where you might say, you know, I'm feeling one with myself. I feel in tune with myself. There might be a little language problem with your proposition of feeling one, because I think most of everyone's experience with reality is they don't really feel one with it. They're kind of given the illusion of free will, and kind of that might create this disconnect.
Yeah, the illusion of self.
Well, you know, it's an interesting. The self is a. I'm not sure the self, the way we describe it, is an illusion necessarily. Because I think it's something we can actually, you know, if we're going to say, okay, the self is the biological entity and all of the emergent properties of its mind, that's the self, then we can actually measure that and say this self is different than that self.
Yeah, I would say that you can measure it in the same way that you would measure like a quantum phenomenon. It's kind of like the you-ness of you is centered at where you feel you are. But then you have things like, and it starts with stuff like your heartbeat, and you don't necessarily have control of that. So is the heart beating you? And then you can extend that out to the wheat that's growing in the field. Is that, in a sense, you, because you will one day eat the bread and then that will make up your structure from the wheat that is now in the field.
I think what you're saying poetically is interesting, but I think on philosophical grounds and scientific grounds, it's going to be a bug that's pretty easily squashed. But I like the poetry of it. But yeah, what do you guys think? Desired, Skeptic?
I think that It's hard to explain what I think. Um, you're absolutely right, and you're absolutely wrong, both at the same time. If you look at the scale of the immediate, then you're wrong, because that is the differentiation, right? But over time, given enough time, it's kind of like the conversation we were having yesterday about, I think it was yesterday, about existing, or, oh, maybe that was another. I was having a conversation the other day about how something that becomes and then fails, or and then ceases to be, did it ever really exist? Is kind of the question. And that's what it sounds like you're describing to me, Dal. So, like, you're describing the entire group. We're made of stardust and we return to it if you look at the beginning and the end, right? There is no change overall.
Yeah, I would argue that is the I don't even know what word I would use to describe it. I would argue that that's the most correct way of viewing it, because labels, the things that we use to separate things, concepts, is actually something that we evolved. It's an ability we have to differentiate
language.
Things. Yeah, language, in order to communicate concepts and have ideas, and eventually even mathematics and all that sort of stuff. But initially, before there was a mind capable of creating language, everything was just dependent on the previous thing and would then determine the next thing, at least in a probabilistic sense, but also quite possibly in a literal deterministic sense.
Well, I have a question. Like, you're talking about language before mind can perceive it, but like, isn't language nothing more than information transfer? And therefore, so long as one animal or being or whatever can make another being understand that it is being aggressive towards it, isn't that the same as language, just not as refined?
I would call that communication.
Well, yes,
like,
which is the
like
goal of language, right?
Yeah,
language is communication.
The thing that separates language from communication is the fact that it builds concepts. So I can say universe, and I can define the concept of universe as all things. But then someone later, say maybe over time, that concept can change, and not only over time, but in each individual's mind, there's a slightly different perception of that concept. And so people can say things like outside of the universe, but if you take into account the original concept, that wouldn't make sense. And people kind of get caught in these sorts of linguistic traps. And it's almost, there's an old Buddhist saying that I've been trying to summarize recently, and I don't think I'm quite there yet, but it's basically that language is a device, is a thing, it's a tool we use, and we're pointing at, say, the moon, and everyone looks at my finger when I point to the moon, and they will say moon, but they're confusing my finger, the words, the language, with the actual physical thing. Because I would say that there are no individual physical things. We're just differentiating things with tools because it's useful for our continued evolutionary progress. And I'm interested heavily to hear where I'm going wrong, because
No, I don't think. I'm trying to figure out how to formulate, because I don't think you're wrong. I think it's.
Well, I think you're. If you were, it depends on what you seek to get out of this, because you could, instead of saying one, you could say everything is connected, right? And you're essentially doing the same thing. So I think what you're doing is writing poetry and which is cool. But if you were to make a philosophical argument that everything is one, we take into consideration the colloquial usages of words, and that's where you're gonna get hit with, well, you're using oneness differently than we use it, so you're just redefining and
Okay.
and you're changing the game. And then if you use this in the scientific sense, then you're going to say everything is one, and then we'll say, well, what does one mean to us in the lab? And then we'll say, well, it's not one. It's a seemingly infinite amount of things, that we have different labels for and different categories for. Yeah. So I think Dal, yeah, you're in the realm of art. You're on left brain spectrum right now, but I think outside of that, not much there.
I could see your point. I think the reason, because I could say things are connected, and I am prone to saying that. I'll occasionally say things like everything influences other things, but I think it's more. I think it's like deeper than that. It's almost
determined, man.
Causes everything.
It's determined. That is the one for me.
Well, we don't know for sure if the future is necessarily determined, but when you say we don't know for sure, that's a bit of a cop out, because I'm not sure that we can know anything to 100% certainty. But everything we know about cause and effect, and the determined cause and effect from the beginning of the Big Bang, we can't get out of it, man. It's just physics playing out the way it can. However, here's an interesting thing about determinism and free will. If we do get to the point where we can create our own simulations that we are essentially the gods of, that is when we would actually have free will, if we were software within that system. It's kind of a cool thing. But we would only have free will inside that system, not outside of our system, because it was still determinism that drove us to everything we're doing within the system. So do you think it's possible that we could give ourselves free will in reality, like through
as long
manipulating our own genetics or something?
No. So all of that twiddling about you're doing, Dal, trying to get ahead of determinism, is determinism. So it's a common thing to want to. Yeah, it's a common thing to want to try to escape the deterministic properties of the laws of physics. Here's one, actually. Here's a unique thing. If you could, and it creates a bit of a paradox. And this is where every time you try to come up with something to escape determinism, you realize you're that loop, that process you just went through was predetermined. So you'll say something like, if only I could change the laws of physics, that would show determinism. No, it wouldn't. You changed the laws of physics because it was predetermined, man. It's a funny thing though. Like, people think that the default position is to just, the default position is that we have free will because it feels that way. Well, that's the crappy argument we hear for things like love all the time. Well, I think I'm in love because it feels that way. It's like, oh, okay. Is it particularly this person, or do you just hate being alone?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to think of it in the compatibilist sense, like the free will compatibilist sense. Like, love exists in the sense that there's a thing, and we're going to name it something.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we can measure it, right? Yeah. We can build scientific models to demonstrate love. Yeah,
exactly. So to say love isn't real, or I don't remember.
No, sorry. I was just saying the argument. I see the free will argument the same as set up when it's like, yeah, I feel like I have free will. That means I have it. It's kind of like, I feel like I'm in love. That means I am.
Yeah, the reason I tend to fight against the free will and not fight against the love thing is because people they'll confuse their finger with the moon, and they'll say I have free will and then redefine free will even after you've gone through and defined it in a way that's usable, that exists. So like compatibilism, I don't think is bad. It's just that some people are almost incapable of being real compatibilists because they'll
Compatibilism, though, it's a waste of time. There's nothing true about compatibilism. It's just all like if people want to move away from determinism, it's because you don't like the findings. If you want to demonstrate that there's some compatibilistic element to this or some free will element, but it's not really free will, you'll win the Nobel Prize if you can demonstrate that.
Well, I think it's more about renaming convention. So like the compatibilists don't necessarily think that there is still free will. It's a little different than we thought. They would say, there's still this thing that I have, and I need to give it a name. And like I've heard people like Stephen Woodford argue that you should call it will, and I tend to agree with that. It's will, I think, is a better term.
Yeah, but Dal, this is all just an attempt to try to make it sound like we have control over something, and we do not.
How do you know
well,
that we don't have control?
We know that we don't have control.
Like you're making a solid, but
we can demonstrate
that.
Control. Desired.
We have no control whatsoever.
We have zero control. It's all just predetermined action that's being dictated by our brains, and our brains are acting based on the laws of physics. The only way they could have acted.
Yeah, you would have to define control.
But that only defines how the process is carried out, not what the product of the process is.
We're just talking about
that's like saying that a computer program can't work unless it's on a circuit board. And that's not shit. But that doesn't mean that the choices can't be changed in them.
No,
the way you described it anyway.
Desired, you can't.
Laws of physics don't determine which left or right, logic gate on or logic gate off. Does it?
Yes.
It only determines how that happens, not whether that will happen or not.
No, that it's even in equations where we're claiming there is seemingly it's seemingly random. Like when we look at the realm of quantum physics, there is no randomness in physics. There are equations that we can build that give us probabilistic answers. But if we had the proper equations to read the very strange world of the quantum realm, when we say seemingly random quantum fluctuations, they're not random at all. They're still being driven. There is no system that is escaping the laws of physics. Is it possible? Sure, but it's not.
How is a thought?
Yeah.
How is
you're a Copenhagen guy?
Say that again, Desired. How is what?
How is a thought?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, you have your choice, left or right. How does gravity make your choice, left or right?
You don't have a choice, left or right. There is no choice. Desired. So basically, neuroscience has shown us that thoughts happen to us, and thoughts dictate our actions. We are not dictating our thoughts. So when I seemingly am doing random movements with my arm, flinging my arms around, there are measurable reasons as to why that happened that match to the laws of physics and match to my brain.
Right, like I said, that's just depicting the mechanisms by which it happened. That does not describe where a thought comes from.
No, I didn't. So that's the unanswered. Just wait. That is the unanswered question of consciousness. So where the thought comes from, that's where that new theory needs to be written in. That's the unanswered piece of the puzzle. But we have no reason to believe that that's anything outside. We have no reason to believe that operates outside the laws of physics.
So you take what's that called? The Occam's razor, and you shave off Sean Carroll.
What is what do you mean, Sean Carroll?
Sean Carroll tends to think that the probabilistic nature of quantum mechanics is fundamental, or at least he sounds that way. I might be.
Yeah, no, it's if he did make that claim, I don't think he did, Dal. But if he did make that claim, you can't make the claim that a seemingly random mathematics proves this wrong all the time. A seemingly random set of something that we're observing and trying to measure, and we can't catch up with it. This is what Einstein dealt with. Equals MC squared. It's a system that seems random. It seems like it has free will. It seems like this. It seems like that. But really, the best answer in those situations is I don't know, say I don't know and then start working on it. And we're in the process in quantum physics of working on these things, and that's why the predictability of our equations so far are just not very good, but they're getting better.
Yeah, I tend to think
you're saying that what your understanding of Sean Carroll's presentation is that the randomness is fundamental, similar to the commutation principle?
My understanding of Sean Carroll's stance was that the underlying fuzziness of quantum mechanics is part of reality, and there's nothing deeper. And I think he also, I'm less sure on that than I am sure that he thinks, what's it called? Hilbert space, or the space of all possible realities, is real. So he believes in the multiverse through quantum means.
Yeah, I think I know he does that. The thing I don't think he would claim, though, is what we were kind of getting at before about randomness. Even in sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say randomness may have been the wrong word.
Right. But yeah, no, that's cool. Akara, welcome to the chat. We're just talking general philosophy today.
Yep, just listening in right now.
Yeah,
just
cool.
hopped in like a few minutes ago.
What are your favorite topics in the philosophy realm?
Honestly, right now I'm just kind of hopping in to hear what you guys are talking about and make up my mind and just listen in.
Yeah, no worries.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I think it's difficult to see the connection, but for me, I would say that, so think of Schrodinger's cat, and once something is observed, it stays, right? I think that is temporary. So if you're thinking of like quantum particles spin up or spin down, another quantum particle can observe it by bumping into it or proximity, gravity.
Well, a particle can't make an observation.
Right. I'm not thinking of sentient observation. I'm talking about the same way that quantum mechanics and Schrodinger talks about observation. Interaction with is observation, is anything. So when my fingers touch, they're observing each other. Atoms touching each other are observing each other. And they're collapsing the superposition. Does that make sense? It's not like observe, like I see with my eyes, and then I process with my brain observe. It's just if there is an interaction at all.
Right.
And I would say that's temporary.
See, so are you talking about the language, the way you're putting the language together isn't sounding correct to me, because so we talk about quantum observers in quantum mechanics,
right?
But those are actual observers. Us observing quantum mechanics and attempting to measure.
The detector in the machine.
Yeah. Now that's we're the quantum observer, but I think you're talking about I just for some reason using the observer in that way just I mean interaction I think is better, but
yes. The jump is, or not the jump, but the transformation is, there's a superposition happening. Once interaction happens, that superposition is collapsed into the choice, right? Spin up, spin down, or whatever it is. Whatever scale you're wanting to look at. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, there's several states.
Right.
Yeah.
And interaction with it locks that state in. I think that is
it freezes the state of,
but that is what determinism is. So determinism isn't infinite. It only goes out so long as so many interactions happen, and then interactions have to happen again.
Yeah,
almost
but
like a recharge.
I don't think we have enough information to claim that it's not infinite. I wouldn't make that claim as a skeptic. I would say.
Well, I wouldn't claim that it's infinite to begin with.
No.
Like,
we don't have
even
to.
More so.
Yeah, we don't have to claim. We don't have to make the positive claim either way. I think it's better.
Right. So what is determinism stating then? If it's determined, then you're necessarily stating that it has a previous and a future.
No, you don't have to. You don't have to. Well, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you can say that all of this. If we had a supercomputer that could do the equations of every single thing, every single state of potential, and every single interaction that's happened from that, and then calculate that forward and show us, and this is essentially how one way to think about time travel. If you got into this,
right.
This.
And what I'm saying, is that computer by necessity, due to the fuzziness of quantum mechanics, cannot get infinitely forward. It has a limit for it can go.
See, I wouldn't make that claim. I don't think we know that yet.
I think it's described.
Well,
we don't even know for sure that there isn't a measurement problem, right? It could be
exactly.
That instead of a wave function collapsing, it could be that we just don't know the internal mechanics.
Right, and that's why I desired you won't hear physicists make that positive claim, but if it's something you want to say it can't be infinite because of X, I would look at that and ask the hard questions of how do you feel you can get away with making that claim when we don't know?
I'm not saying that it can't. I'm saying it's more likely that it isn't infinite.
Okay, well I think that's a different claim altogether.
I think that the way most people operate is as if it is.
No, well, I think people operate. I think people operate.
That's what the general understanding of determinism is.
Well,
right?
Yeah. Well, I think the main way people think about it in kind of an individualistic way is that they have this understanding that things are happening to them. They're not dictating anything. But they're still a willing, excited observer, and enjoying the pleasure feedback of living, and living is its own damn reward, and we're just lucky to be in this state of observation.
I got lost.
Yeah, just basically people how the. What I think is the scientific fact of determinism is that, you understand that, okay, I'm not in control of anything or what's going on. I wasn't in control of where I was born, any of that stuff, or what happened to me, all of that, or what I did, the decisions I made. And this has to do with our understanding of, but from that, I think you work into your moral foundation that there's still there is good evolutionary reason as to why I have this illusion of free will, and I should enjoy that, and I should enjoy the pleasure feedback of that free will illusion.
Maybe
that's how I think about it anyway.
Yeah, I tend to say that the illusion is real. So
Yeah, no, the illusion is fantastic. It's great. It gives biological entities this feeling of wanting to will themselves forward. It seems to be a fundamental, an important fundamental property of beings or biological entities that have survived. Willingness. It's a very distasteful topic to people who have never talked about it. Like sometimes I'll bring it up with family and things like that. You know, and the common emotional reaction to that is like, you trying to tell me I didn't do anything for myself? But you know, science has done that forever. It's kind of we understand that things that seem intuitive to us, it's not always the way we think it's going to turn out to be, the way reality is. But I think that's cool. I think there's a way to take those realities and get inspired about it and try to make the findings, the scientific reality of life and work that into your moral foundation and enjoy it as part of the adventure.
I agree. Don't fight is. You can't fight is.
Yeah, I see people,
the way things are.
Especially with what's going on now, man, like people trying to fight scientific consensus as though it's like it, sure, if you know, it's sometimes the scientific consensus, and this is why actually, by the way, scientific consensus has gotten such a big upgrade in the past 50 years, where you see all around the place in the scientific realm the answer I don't know for things, and those are the I don't know questions are so exciting for me. I want to know the I don't know things, and so do most scientists. And these drive people to want to, you know, work on these new problems, try new equations, you know, to even you know, trying to answer the I don't knows out there in the science realm. It can invite some ridicule towards you, where people are like, you know, you're met with there is a fair amount of cynicism, I'll tell you, in the scientific community when it comes to, like, you know, the logical fallaciousness of argument from authority fallacy in the scientific community. It's a big one. They will say, they'll look at a new equation or something, and their favorite scientific authority will look at it and they'll say something like, instead of saying what's wrong with the equation, they'll say something like, well, why don't you go to university and get your PhD, then we'll talk. You know, something like that. This elitism does exist in the scientific community, and it's one of the things I do like about what some of the things Eric Weinstein has to say about the scientific community and elitism. He is right about some of that. When he starts getting into conspiratorial crap about academia, I have no time for it, but because he just doesn't bring any evidence to the table for what he's talking about. But he is right about it, because we can actually see these mainstream scientists and thinkers. We can see their Twitter accounts. We can see how they react to things, and we can see how they sometimes care. They fall into the logical fallacy of sometimes caring where the equation is coming from or the answer is coming from, as opposed to the actual answer itself. And that's a problem.
Very much.
Yeah, and that's why when someone comes into the room, I'll have you know, Travis, that I have my PhD in whatever, and then I basically say your PhD in the context of this argument or discussion we're about to have, Your PhD means as much to me as the POP in your fridge. And I mean that as a skeptic. It doesn't matter to me if you've written 17 New York Times bestselling books on quantum physics. If you make a claim that hasn't been demonstrated in quantum physics, I'm going to call you out for it. And if you can't demonstrate the claim and you're just going to say like, oh, you can't, the problem is you just can't understand the answer. And I'll just no, explain your answer and explain how you know this. And then if you come and then if you show me a probabilistic equation that only gives us a 20% success, then I'm going to say there is a lot of room for more discovery there well, I would say there is potentially a lot more to be discovered there. That's what I would say.
I'd agree with that. I think it does leave. I think backyard scientists are important. They are learning things and making things bigger and better and faster.
Yeah.
Rapid prototyping is moving science forward because the bigger, like CERN and stuff, are able to learn from smaller projects.
Yeah.
They're taking different, even if it's a construction project, how are we going to level this or something like that?
Right.
There's something moving a building that they've taken a lesson from, like, or something, and that was just a backyard, barn raising where they needed to move a building, 20 feet. And they just dug under it, put some poles, lifted some wheels under it, and rolled it over. It worked.
Yep.
Takes little discovery to build on.
Mm-hmm. Going through this pandemic has really shown the holes to me in many thinkers and how they must upgrade their skeptical foundations. And also, like, just, I mean, it's a combination of the election in the United States, the pandemic, so many things going on. It's a test of really whose thinking can become hijacked by their emotionality and whose can't. And I think there's some shocking cases out there for, and some not so shocking. Like you'll see the kind of like personalities that have their YouTube channels, like Steven Crowder and guys like that, where you expect them to just do whatever they have to do, even if it means just becoming like 100% cynical and pandering to their audience. Like some of that you expect, but then you have, some other philosophers and scientists, fear mongering about the pandemic, and then also fear mongering about Trump. And then on the other side, you have people fear mongering about what happens if Biden wins. The country's going to fall to shit, and you better get your guns ready and all this crap. Like, there's just a complete lack of skepticism and a complete uptick of cynicism out there. And it's a frustrating endeavor for me to go through all the platforms that I'm involved in and hearing people make mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake, thinking that they're being skeptical and really they're being cynical. It's the only answer is to engage, swell the ranks of people who understand what skepticism is, and be able to identify and go to war with cynicism in a constructive way, so a constructive and firm way, so that it doesn't continue, hopefully, to manifest at least in the same way that it did before. You know, with the COVID-19 vaccine, it's been a big one. You get otherwise pretty clear thinking people doing and saying irrational crap. What does that sound like? It sounds like religion. It's because cynicism has that kind of, it takes into consideration the group identity of where the arguments are coming from. It likes it. It takes into consideration that identity. And there's a reason why it sounds like religion, because it is.
I think it really shows what humans need this year. It's really brought out and made very evident the things we were getting that we didn't notice. The personal touch, the connection, like, oh, I hate going out, but I got to go to the grocery store, and you're bumping into people, or you're getting grumpy at people, but that's at least feeling connected to the overall entity that is humankind. Now it's, oh God, stay away, and everybody's just getting severed completely.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in a really privileged position because I am one of those people that generally is quarantined from the public, even if there's not a pandemic. I notice, like, my behavior and how I live has not really changed one iota. Like, since the pandemic, it's like I don't really see a lot of people. I don't. I'm not out in public. I probably work too much, but it's where I feel really bad for the people that are not like me, the ones that need to be out seeing friends, doing things, being around crowds, going to the mall, all this stuff. Their worlds are turned upside down right now. And also, not to mention the elderly who are getting wiped out hard by this pandemic.
Yeah.
And it's just it's not fair to them, and it's tough too, because when you become elderly, you have a higher chance of dying, and you don't want to have spent your last moments, your last bit of time you have, fucking cooped up away from your family, your grandchildren, and you get sick of interacting with them through a fucking screen because it's not the same. And and then eventually a lot of elderly people come to the decision that, you know what? Maybe I would fucking risk dying to see my grandkids. It's a tough one.
That's the choice a lot of them are making.
Yeah, and I tell them, I'm like, oh my God, people, please, just the vaccine's almost ready. Take it if you are, especially if you are one of these, especially if you were one of these
I'm talking about the ones that it's like they're out like next week. Like over the last few months, you know what I mean? Like, there were groups of them that I would say, yeah, that you can go. If you're ready to go make sure you spend the last bit.
Oh, I know.
You know,
look, I know what you're saying. Like, if people are on the brink of death, and oh, of course.
They're not making it to the end of this year.
Right. Yeah.
This is in March and June and stuff. They're not making it to November.
Yeah.
Come on home. Do whatever. We'll quarantine as much as we can so you can live as long as you can. But we're not going to. I think it was a particular group of the population that also got shoved in the home. And this is why.
The individual choice. Grouping. The individual choice is important to keep that sustained, that people still have choice. I want people to make the right choice, but I don't want to take away their choice, because you will have these anecdotal situations where the people will say, I know I'm the at-risk individual here to COVID-19, and it could kill me if I get it, but I figure I have maybe a year or so left due to how my cancer is progressing or whatever. And they think maybe this will be the last Christmas I get, and I'll be damned if I'm going to sit away based on the chance that I might catch this COVID-19. The best my family can do is I'm going to come over. I'm going to sanitize. They're going to sanitize. Do everything we can to keep clean, keep germ free, which is fine. Wear your masks, all that jazz. But for the elderly people, and this is the general rule for the elderly people who have these pre-existing health conditions, who are otherwise looking at living more life, they don't have some terminal illness or something like that, then please don't put yourself at risk. Keep yourself quarantined. The vaccine will be out soon, and please take it.
Yes.
Now, and then a lot of people I see a lot of people who are like in their 30s with no pre-existing health conditions freaking out about the vaccine and all this crap. First of all, the vaccine is safe. That's the scientific consensus. If you feel otherwise, that's a feeling. However, you're not really the primary reason why the vaccine has been created. You're not the primary one. You are the secondary one because you're part of humanity. And ideally, like the measles, like all these other fucking deadly things, you want to make sure you kind of get your herd immunized. So that's the secondary, but the primary is to stop the killing, right? So just don't, if you're a young person out there, if you're on social media and you're interacting with the elderly people in your family, don't fill their head with nonsense, anti-scientific nonsense that is going to deter them from getting a potentially life-saving vaccine that they're going to be fine with. It's safe. That crap pisses me off.
It is frustrating when you're going up against a knowledge base that you don't know what the lowest common denominator is.
Yeah, I want people to get more comfortable saying I don't know. Like as a skeptic, when I look out, the thing is, and
I think another part.
Yeah, go ahead.
To add to that would be understanding they don't know.
Yes. Yeah. Well, they have to get there. Yeah.
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 Because there's a lot that can say that don't even understand that they don't know what they're talking about, or that they could even possibly not know what they're talking about.
100%. And getting to a position of I don't know, and then understanding that the scientific method leading to the global scientific consensus is the best shot any of us have into understanding what is going on. Yes, there are unanswered questions that have to do with reality and that we need to investigate, but they really are a lot fewer and far between than people think. We know a fuck ton about damn near everything that's going on. There are some fundamental underlying things that we don't quite know, some mysteries out there, but fuck, we know so much. And this is why I'm posting videos of actual virologists talking about the actual data and it's right down to how the proteins interact, all that crap. Because some people think that like some of these disciplines are all about just like putting a concoction of something together and then injecting people with this stuff like it's a cleaner or something, and then seeing how if they have any side effects. Like the details at play here are much more vast, much harder to understand for the layman. And all they simply have to do is go on the free platform of YouTube and watch a lecture, a Stanford lecture on virology, talking about specific things. It's all available. It's all freely available. What they're going to find is they have a hard time following along anything of what's being said. Well, that's because there's a completely new language that they have to learn first.
Right.
It's not.
But they're also coming up against, like you were saying, people that when they try to ask questions, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Why don't you go to school? It's like,
Oh
well,
yeah, the argument from
maybe I don't
authority
have
fallacy.
time, and
Yeah.
it's like, and I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, look, I've been sitting in my security job for the past 7 years, watching these videos online, and I'm just asking because there's questions I need to connect because I didn't have a teacher.
Right.
Well, what's weird is that it's only in very specific fields. Like nobody would say this about math or like a question about computer programming. If you can prove it, the proof is in the pudding and you can show it.
Right.
But for some reason, when it comes to like medicine, no matter what I say, I'm not going to be taken seriously because I'm not an MD.
Yeah, it's it is a problem, and this is why the argument from authority fallacy, when something like this happens, I notice everyone they're either afraid of the expert or they worship the expert, which both are fallacious. They need to be focusing on the goddamn argument. And more importantly, the scientific consensus, because the scientific consensus is built to eliminate, because you can't buy scientific consensus. And something I was saying earlier today is that you can't buy it because you'll have a bunch of like students who will look at the data, university students that'll look at the data and show how it was wrong.
Hey,
you can't.
I don't understand. This is not at all what you taught me it's supposed to say.
Yeah,
don't
exactly.
Worry about it. Like, no.
Yeah.
Not, like,
but
that pops up.
Yeah.
Quick.
So anyone that has a conspiratorial outlook on the scientific community, that should put them at ease. And then, and also because they'll point to like, oh, well, this scientist said this because he was working for X in the past. Big pharma, bagoo. And then I'll be like, okay, it's like yes, we have the evidence that scientist was thrown in jail, whatever, and then, but again, what that scientist was saying was running antithetically against the scientific consensus, and that's how we knew what he was saying was crap. Like the autism vaccine thing.
Oh yeah, just completely.
There's still people citing that turd's work, and they're like, well, he's a scientist. Yeah, see, you're addicted to labels. You're addicted to the argument from authority fallacy and confirmation bias. If someone can find a goddamn expert out there that will confirm what they already believed, oh, they love it. They love it. They're not out trying to figure out where they could be wrong and questioning and continuing to question, sorting bullshit from reality, known as skepticism. They're not doing that. They're looking to try and find where they were always right in their righteous position. Pisses me off, man.
And I think also the other thing is that, like, when you say go watch a Stanford lecture on YouTube, I mean, I agree with that. The problem is that if you've got a kook on YouTube saying the opposite thing, people think, well, because it's all on the equal platform of YouTube, that's an equal playing field. So this guy's position is the same as.
Oh yeah, man. Someone was saying that. Someone was saying that in the goddamn text the other day. I forget who it was. One of these text channels, but they were saying something about YouTube being a bad source. They were like, I don't get my information from YouTube. Bitch, we have Stephen Hawking's books on YouTube. YouTube is an excellent resource if you know how to use it.
Right. And it's such a problem. Like it's the modern day Dewey Decimal System is being able to parse, because
this is why I promote skepticism, man. Skepticism leads you there.
Bullshit can sound great.
It can, but to the skeptic, it just sounds like bullshit. Deepak Chopra has.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Millions of people think he's saying something scientific, but he's saying artistic poetry.
Right, but I think there is a little bit that you have to give those people, that it does take some time to learn what some of those words mean.
Yes,
and look them up.
And that's what the skeptic does.
There should be a grace period of believing him.
I
would think.
I would say
instead of beginning skeptic.
Instead of that desired, I would say you always start with I don't know. Always.
No, you should. You should.
Yeah.
And I think that's what younger generations are doing.
I agree, man. Younger generations, man, I'm telling you, younger generations, it's happening. Steven Pinker calls it. All of the good thinkers call it. The ones who understand skepticism. The younger generation will call out your fucking bullshit. Like I was when I was young, when it was not cool to do that with adults. I would be the little asshole kid calling out adults' bullshit. You actually can't know that. You don't know that, teacher. Go to the office, Travis.
That was my sister, yeah. My sister was the behavioral problem that would always be like, so for example, a classic example that I bring up with my sister is when the adults would talk about the importance of sharing, she would then try to like take their stuff from them and say like, well, you have to share.
Right.
They're like, wait, well, that's not what I mean when I say sharing. And you're like, oh, you don't actually want to share. When does that ever happen in real life? When can someone come up to you and just take your toy from you and say you have to share it?
Yeah. Yeah, take your wife. You have to share her.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah, no, totally. I can remember a teacher talking about Hitler and saying they mentioned that Hitler was evil. And then I said, well, evil to you. They were like, no, he is objectively evil. I'm like, no, it's not objectively evil. It's subjectively evil.
Nobody's the villain in their own story.
Right. And
well, I mean, depending on unless you want to be the villain, but then you're not doing evil. Right.
So, and that's all I was saying. But I remember getting sent to the office for that. Just engaging in philosophy. And the difference between objective and subjective when it comes to morality.
Did you go to high school in Canada?
Yeah, in the buttfuck nowhere mountains of British Columbia. Yeah, but man, it's frustrating. And you know what's even more frustrating, and this is what I wish deniability was here, but deniability was engaging in something very insidious and nasty, which is when someone is deep into cynicism and they know how to manipulate words and certain language in a way that can really confuse even decent skeptics into thinking they're asking a certain thing, but really they're alluding to their cynical conclusion. And
sounds like Noam Chomsky to me.
Yeah, well, on some things, yeah. You're right.
I can see him overreaching some.
Yeah. You will never hear a great skeptic do that. They are so careful not wanting to say incorrect shit that they're going to do everything in their power, even if it means taking more time, taking a breath, to not confuse the listener into believing something. A good skeptic should want the person to get to the conclusion by using skepticism, not by being told the answer.
I think that's close. I think a skeptic should be able to inhabit a belief and step out of that belief willingly.
Well, but beliefs,
because you wouldn't get scientific, you wouldn't push scientific boundary without stepping outside of.
No, I don't
think. You see what I'm saying?
I don't think you have to desire.
Belief that something's true.
I don't think well, the thing about belief, and this is how I describe belief, is that you become convinced of things that you believe. You don't just choose willy-nilly. You will have a justification in your mind, whether it be a bad one or a good one, as to why you believe a certain proposition or thing. So, but what I think you're kind of getting at is more the questioning and continuing to question element of skepticism, which is what it is. The continuing to question element of it is actually the thing that leads Einstein to allow his artistic inspirational properties to envision the gravitational map of the cosmos. You know, it's
right.
the continuing to question element that gets him there, that makes him special, because he has that artistic inspirational power within him. That element of skepticism is often forgotten, I think, because people think that it's just, you know, sitting there with your arms closed and closed off to the possibility of other things. It's like, no, it's actually the opposite of that. It's arms wide open, questioning and continuing to question everything, not in an anxious way, not in and this is why cynicism is really addicting, because you get addicted to the properties of skepticism that seem to work, and then you start taking that to the extreme. How can we even know anything? How do we know that the guy creating the virus isn't a robot? It's just fucking like cynicism, man.
Yeah, and you arrive at those weird skeptical boogeymen.
Yeah.
That's kind of where John Oliver gets it for me. Where's the line? It's fucking somewhere. Like,
well,
if I give my kid Twizzlers, I don't then just give him black tar heroin. Like,
yeah, and
like there is a line somewhere.
Yeah.
Let's be realistic. And you can be a little bit off, but you can generally be in the area. Right?
Yeah, and this is why I try to explain skepticism in simplistic terms of sorting bullshit from reality. It's true that it's not rocket science, because it doesn't require a lot of knowledge to engage with or dabble in. Skepticism is simply just, don't just accept things. You can accept some things based on reasonable inference, and that's part of skepticism. If someone says, I just went to the grocery store and they have grocery bags, the skeptic is fine accepting that to be true. You have your true justified belief. What are you using to measure that it's true? Well, they have the grocery bags. Oh, but it's possible that they just created a ruse to make you think that they went. Yes, it is possible, but skeptics care about plausibility. They don't care about possibility. That's another key distinction.
I think there's a balance between humbleness and confidence in order to sharpen your skepticism.
Yeah, well, I think all you need to be confident in is the actual method itself. So the method of skepticism, just like we're confident in the method of science. Like, as far as I'm concerned, the scientific method is a perfect method, but you're going to be inputting missing information all the time and trying to fill in the gaps and all kinds of stuff, and you're not going to have all the information you wish you had for every scientific model you build. But the process, the actual mechanism, the scientific method is perfect. But it can be, it can be used in error, just like skepticism.
Yeah, it doesn't describe what is.
Well,
there's no like truth or like fact that you get from the scientific method, which is a huge fallacy.
Wait.
Says, here's our best theory.
You get a probability distribution, I guess.
Yeah, but the scientific method is how we determine what is going on.
Yeah, but it's not there to describe facts. It's to give our best theory from our point of view, what we have, and it will be continued to be worked on and be better, right? So, which we colloquially call facts, though. Like Richard Dawkins in his books will call the scientific findings facts. So I just wanted to work on that language a bit there, because I think it might confuse listeners. Well, it's confusing to people that think that there's a thing called scientism, or there's a thing that there is, but people place a lot of people into those realms, and they're just like, well, does that say what's true? And it's like that scientific method was never there to say what's true. It's there to give the best theory about what's going on, and it's
the
if
best
you can
answers.
challenge it, you're welcome to challenge it as long as you can challenge
the
it.
best answers based on the evidence of reality.
Yeah, philosophy comes from a different angle than the scientific method in a lot of ways, right? And there's a lot of other like empirical evidence and observational evidence that doesn't come from a philosophical or scientific method angle too. So like all of these add up together, right, to help ground your reality. And what I think is important is that you're skeptical about each little method, every step, and all may be, but the humbleness that I think is there is you gotta be understanding that you're not the smartest person in the room, and somebody might know more than you, and you just gotta. And if they're smart, they'll be able to explain it to you correctly. And then you're also confident when you know that they're just a fucking idiot.
Yeah, I think when I think of my skepticism, the individual I'm always talking to, it doesn't matter whether it always just matters about the arguments that are being made. And that's how I wish people to think and hear information. I don't want them to hear Richard Dawkins and believe in the theory of evolution because Dawkins says so. I want them to at least look at some of the information, look at transitional forms, take 5 minutes to read the reasons why all the dating methods that we use for measuring things. And it's 5 minutes. Like even if they went to Wikipedia and looked at the entry for evolutionary biology, how we know what we know, or there's another one, talkorigins.org. But just like it's sometimes 5 minutes, 10-minute upgrade can be the world of difference to someone from a artistic or scientific inspiration perspective.
Earlier, Grim, you said, I think you said something like there's other types of evidence that is not scientific or philosophical. What would be an example of something that doesn't fall under either of those two?
Yeah, that was one of my follow-ups as well.
Observational. So like if I'm standing next to a rock and you're standing next to a rock and I say that's a rock and you go, yep, that's a rock. Like so it's experiential evidence that we all know that experience gives us that's a rock, and we all can point to that as a rock. We don't need to do a scientific method on it. We don't need to do a philosophical debate on it. It's observational empirical evidence standing in front of us.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure, like, depending on the definition of scientific, if that would count as scientific or a combination of.
In a way that you don't have to put the scientific method of applying that method, you know.
Well, yeah, I think that is part of the scientific method, observation, and the reason why, you know, we have a model and we teach children, you know, as they're growing up, those are rocks. That's a rock. This is a rock. That's a rock. Oh, that's not a rock? Why isn't it a rock? I went and touched it. Oh, it's actually a chunk of rubber. That's all part of the, you know, left brain figuring out what is going on around us. Yeah. And the point is that I think it's fine and dandy for us now to be like, sweet, we already have these answers. It seems so easy for us and that we can point these things out. But it's only because we have an accepted language, a colloquial language, but all of those things and categories do come from science.
Yeah, we just have all this stuff that we've done before predating scientific method. So there was another way of approaching things back then, and that's what I'm saying. It still constitutes as a way to not. It could be evolved into the scientific method, but I'm just saying we still do things that are still, you know, and it's obvious, right? We all know where the sun's at and shit like that. Like we don't have to perform the whole method itself. And this is what we did before, and this is how we had the evidence based on. It just wasn't as good as we have it now because we actually have methods in place that we've thought really hard about, and those methods will get better in the future.
Yeah, right. We just be careful we just got to be careful about, you know, the observations deceiving us, right? Like the observation that the sun is moving around us rather than the other way around.
Yeah. I think the experience is something that can be shared. the understanding. Like I said, we don't know what the truth is, and the scientific method still won't give you the truth, but it'll give you the best theory, more exact than your eyes and your senses or whatever it may be.
Yeah, it depends if you're talking about truth with regards to epistemological standards of 100%.
No, never. Sorry.
What?
I said no, never.
Never what?
Never 100% for me. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, which I think would be a mistake. So
do you know what's true or not, Pangburn? How do you know?
Yeah, well, the scientific method. See, this is what I'm getting at, Grim, because when you're saying that the scientific method is the only avenue we have to truth, to high levels of certain truth. We can't even if we say we can make claims like, okay, the claim of a triangle has three sides. I don't think it's absolutely certainly true either, but I think it's damn near close to certainty. The only thing that gets in the way, I think, is the matrix hypothesis. But
I thought that was absolutely true because it's definitionally true.
no, so definitions though, and here's a problem I have with some philosophical thinkers, and I'll let you guys go after this. But I think because of the existence of the matrix hypothesis, as soon as someone was to, I can think of a matrix that I could create that, as soon as someone was to utter that, Baba Booey, whatever, triangle has three sides, I could build a mechanism within that system that says the law of physics in this system says as soon as that statement is altered, it becomes untrue. That's why I don't attribute 100% certainty to it.
Is there a non-scientific method?
What was that, Grim?
Well, yeah, what was that?
Is there a non-scientific method?
Well, there are plenty of non-scientific methods. They just suck.
Astrology, alchemy,
tarot cards,
yeah. Ghost hunting. Yeah, this is our method for detecting ghosts. See this reader?
The E-meter of Scientology.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to a certain extent, the claims of what would be some other ones? Yeah, I mean,
faith
religion,
healing.
Yeah, faith healing. I was going to say religion in general is riddled with it, but
I thought philosophy was a way to gain knowledge without a scientific method.
See, I don't, because you need to have true justified belief, right?
Well, isn't that just what philosophy is, though?
Well, philosophy is wrestling with the ought, right? Science is wrestling with the is elements of reality. Philosophy is wrestling with the ought. So, and this is why there is cross-contamination between science and philosophy all the time, where philosophy is like, or a scientist might say, what should we be spending this funding on? And then they're actually starting to have an ought conversation. It comes up all the time. Should we be developing this technology?
And what about experience or like history? Is that not scientific but still facts and knowledge?
Yeah. Well, that's part of, I think that's all part of science. History is just a documentation of what is or what has been. It's the attempt,
but doesn't follow the scientific method. Doesn't follow observation, does it?
It doesn't follow observation, but you don't necessarily have to be able to observe things to be engaging in science. So we can we can, for instance, create a scientific equation that's predicting something in the far future,
like a black hole where you don't see it.
Right. Like, yeah, beforehand, where we predict it, it's kind of working in the other direction. But we can also look at instances where we're kind of playing detective, like Eliyahu was just saying, where we're playing detective and we see, okay, it looks like there was some kind of event here that slammed all of these dinosaur bodies together. And if we look at the evidence of the tilt of this hill, and it looks like rock formations came down, it looks like they might have all been killed by a landslide. And, you know, all of this is part of the scientific process, and how we, you know, look at history, categorize it, try to fill in the blanks based on making some inferences sometimes in from history. But yeah, I think it's all part of the scientific process.
But didn't God do it? No, I'm just joking.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing. I was thinking about, you know, it's a fun game to try to find a. I don't want to get into free will again because we always go down there, but
everything ends up going there, man.
It's
bothering me lately,
and it's for good reason why it all goes there, because you want to have a conversation about the greater impact of this decision you're about to make, or this thing you're about to say, and then you're just like, oh, I'm just a meat sack that.
But it also, like, I noticed that it also impacts almost every political discussion now. Like, you probe into the political debate, whatever it is, it always turns into whether or not somebody actually had agency in making their decision, right? So, like, for example, abortion turns into a free will argument about humans being able to control themselves and not have unprotected sex. The trans rights turns into a free will argument about whether someone chooses their gender. Even universal health care is like a free will argument about whether or not you're responsible for your lifestyle and health choices.
Yeah. Isn't that really comedic? Like that we're, you know, we as a species have gotten to a point, I would say, you know, most of the deep thinkers have gotten to the point to understand that determinism, just nothing we can escape for now. At least there's been no demonstration of free will. So we just, we're talking about all these concepts. We're engaging in this. We're really interested. And then all of a sudden the long dick of determinism just smacks us in the face and reminds us, hey, idiot, you're not doing any of this thinking.
Yeah.
It's like, enjoy the show. Like, enjoy the show. Enjoy it. Living is its own damn reward. There's nothing for us living creatures. There's nothing outside of living. It's like, enjoy it. Enjoy the show. Enjoy the cinema. Enjoy the pleasure feedback. It's in 4D. It's coming at you live. But besides that, just try to go for stints without having to remind yourself that, you know, even if you will yourself, in quotes, will yourself to take a chance to go and kiss that girl at the club, don't feel proud about it.
I think your illusion helps you be satisfactory as is, and I think that if you're going to take it from the standpoint of the fact that you're experiencing something, and if you want to take it from that standpoint, it was a show from the beginning, so it really doesn't surprise me, because that's kind of how I live my life anyways. So I can control one thing: how I input information and how I output information. That's it. Everything else outside of that is beyond my control. I better enjoy it, you know, just kind of enjoy the show at that point.
How's it going, Scott?
One sec. Yeah, I'm messing with my headphone. It's not working right. So
no worries.
Just 1 second.
Breaker 19. Test 1 2.
Breaker 19. We're having a comm problem. Space dust floating by. What else are some of the more intriguing questions?
I got a challenge the other day by a guy, and I just like couldn't like get him to understand it. And we were kind of talking past each other, and he says, "All right, I've got a proposal." And I said, "Okay, go ahead." And and he said, all propositions are either true or false. And I said, okay. And he said, if all propositions are conceptual, meaning they happen in the mind, then any proposition that any human hasn't thought of, like just whatever may be, a world out there that we haven't discovered, or whatever it may be, then a mind had to create it.
Yeah, it sounds like something a human being would come up with.
Sounds like a Catholic traditionalist thing to say.
Yeah, it's artistic, it's poetic, but it just if someone wants to demonstrate it to be the case that it's actually true in reality, that if you think something it is, then
that's what I said.
Yeah, they just have to demonstrate.
What proposition I said, what proposition are you talking about? He's like, well, one I haven't thought of yet. I go, which is? And he goes, well, I haven't. And I go, exactly. Came from a human mind. And I go, because you can't, and it's.
Yeah, we say and come up with some strange things too. When we come head to head with existential crisis, especially like I can't imagine trying to live in the time, like as a if you were a pretty good skeptic, like in the time of Aristotle, like just hearing some of the crap that people would come up with, because life was just so awful compared to what we have now. It in the sense of like people not living very long. There's so many different things that can kill you. Constant war, young men being raised for war, young women essentially being raised to give birth to as many children as possible, and probably dying in childbirth. Like,
it's horrible to think about. I think about it all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what propelled people to even want to carry on this experiment? I
know and you try to find all of these inspirational elements that'll help you develop theater. Like if you're thinking from a king's perspective, if you're thinking from a Caesar perspective, you know what? Fuck, if people love war so much, build the fucking Colosseum and let people kill people. That'll inspire people. All of those things we've tried in human history to just get some fucking inspiration in our blood. And these narratives, these powerful narratives, religious narratives, were huge elements that satisfied the scientific and artistic inspirational elements of our brains. We just didn't know at that time that there really wasn't any is thing going on in these things. There was the illusion of it, but and a powerful one, like the afterlife, heaven, all of this stuff. The fear of
it
hell.
Pisses me off, man. If I think about it, it pisses me off. It's just such an excuse. It's an excuse for a bunch of people killing each other.
Yeah, but it was it really got people's asses off the couch.
I guess, but I don't know. I wouldn't want to be one of those people that was forced to fight in the Coliseum.
No,
or in a war.
And you wouldn't want to be one of those poor women that were raped because of something your leader did, and you got invaded and all the women just get raped, tortured, murdered.
It's sad, but it just falls in the same line with all the other shit. People sacrificing virgins to Zeus and shit. It all falls into that category. And if we can just see ourselves moving away from religion as a species more and more, I think we're good, because what we end up doing is we end up falling into the same holes.
Oh my God, man. It's happening so rapidly right now. People can't even help but gasp at like the new generations of children that are coming around. Their parents can't sell them it. They can't sell them the crud anymore. And it's a beautiful thing. The internet has killed the era of bullshit. And the era of bullshit, meaning,
there's a new type of bullshit. It's just
there's a new there's a new type of bullshit, and it has to do with having problems. It's being it's going from being the submissive faith-based thinker to the cynic on the other side. It's like the swing is occurring, and we got so many people engaging in cynicism because they see all these things that they think are great arguments, and they read them, and then they hear they hear Joe Rogan start thinking about it like he might believe it too. and then they're like, oh my God, if Joe Rogan thinks so.
Yeah. I don't.
He's a compelling dude.
Oh man,
I think what the,
yeah.
I think what the hardest part is that you, in the informational age that we have right now, all I'm saying is the same potholes we keep on falling into is that humans are easily fooled. And if anything, even with the information age, I think it's still happening, and we will still continue. Like our understanding and knowledge. Like if you went back, 1,000 years ago, and you were talking about a subject, it probably won't reach the other side of the world in hundreds of years, right? And now, when you're talking about something, you can literally echo it in real time.
Yep.
But people have always been fooled, and so the information might get faster, but does that mean people fooling others will slow down? And I don't know.
Well, luckily our laws have really grown with technology, and sometimes they have to catch up. But it's great that we have cyber laws in place. We have we have fraudsters out there, and I post a lot of clips about these fraudsters who I don't know why all of them happen to be in India, but but these fraudsters that are going after elderly people in the West, and they're getting on their computers, and they're stealing information and getting them to send them money. Just but with this and with this level of manipulation, you have this emergence of people that resist this, and police force resistance, cyber resistance. I think humanity has done quite a good job at trying to keep up with the rampant growth of technology with our laws, and trying to keep freedoms, as much freedoms as possible within people. If you think about the stuff that we argue over in the West, it's kind of laughable when you think about the third world countries compared to what they're fighting for when it comes to their rights. There's still a lot of these countries that are just ran by families and dictators that are just the motherload of bad ideas. Like imagine if the most tyrannical person in your family that you can think of was the leader of a country. It's like the Saudis
yesterday.
It's like the Saudis are kind of like this, but we're also seeing that as new young women and boys are growing up, and they start becoming more educated on what's going on around the world, and better ideas than their dad or their grandpa had. This is a beautiful thing.
Isn't there a crown prince or like a very soon in line to be head of a family that's like, no, when I take over, everything's going to change?
Yeah, you're talking
like
about almost...
or already has or something?
Yeah, Desired. You're talking about almost every single dictatorship, radical country on this globe, man. The young generation's coming up, and I love this. The young generations come up because... No,
I'm saying there's a particular Saudi prince
that
just took over.
Yeah.
And
MBS.
Say that again, Scott?
Mohammed bin Salam, MBS is...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think he was saying that this is a guy who wants to regress.
Oh, Desired, you're saying a regress in human rights?
No.
Progress.
He's
right?
opening up.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
Like he gave women the right to drive.
Oh yeah.
Like he's overnight changed the country.
Yeah, you have
and
to be.
A lot of people were like, "What?"
And
because he's all into the social media.
Yeah,
he gets the messages.
From Israel.
Yeah,
he allowed flights from Israel to come down.
Right. Yeah.
He also
go ahead.
He also killed that journalist, and he also had that journalist killed and chopped up his body.
Yeah, I mean, Scott, you gotta let he's earned a few of those killings.
No, not to justify that. Simply to show.
No,
we're to squash progress.
Yeah, Desired work.
Yeah, I just thought it was a funny point.
Yeah. No, it is a funny point. It's like he does something. Hey, man, I should be able to at least chop off 7 heads. I allowed women to drive.
That is in no way does my statement, wherever this is posted, mean that I agree with what's being said or that was my intention.
No,
You're
we're
like, you sound like a lot of other bins from that area.
Yeah, no, it's but I love when I look around the globe, and I wish I had more time to follow all of the politics of every country, but you can't. It's just too much information. But when I look at the young generations, there's always talks within these circles, and I love it, in these radical circles of the very, very far right wing, keep the woman down, keep chopping the heads off type people. They're really concerned about the not being able to control the new young generation that are basically saying, I'm fucking out of here if we're going to keep living in this pile of shit.
Chopping people's heads off and shit.
Well, yeah. All I can think of when someone says that is from Tremors. You guys remember the movie Tremors with Kevin Bacon?
So good.
And when they drive by those two road workers after they found that old man's head, they're like, you guys gotta get out of here. There's a killer on the loose. Like, what? Real psycho, man. He's just cutting people's heads off. I'm not kidding. That's what that reminds me of.
That's crazy. Yeah, going back to your point of what you said is like, what almost to the point of you saying our problems here in America are trivial compared to third world problems. I think it's important that we discuss trivial matters, and I think it's important that we have conflict, because conflict is kind of our natural. As long as we have that, then we're gonna push that evolutionary stage. If we don't have any pressures coming from anywhere, then we're gonna be lazy and fat, and we're gonna. It's wrong. It's really bad for humans to have everything going great.
And Graham, I think capitalism does deal with that. Having
war's failing.
What's that, Desire?
It's unfortunate that war is slowing down.
Mm.
It's becoming more deadly and more pinpoint, but less.
I wouldn't
there's
say
less collateral damage overall.
I don't think it's unfortunate. I mean,
it's a good thing.
I think
it's a good thing.
Ideological war
is
kind of where it's at now.
Yeah.
Right, but I'm saying that if we thrive on conflict and conflict goes away, what do we have left to thrive on?
Well,
we're going to have to find something else.
Maybe
physical conflict should go away as it has been.
Right.
Right.
May I offer? I would say, like, up in Canada, Canadians feel like there's always a lot of conflict, but compared to the U.S., we're like, the hippies and the loggers are making out up here. Literally the conservatives and the hardcore Green Party hippies are just face to face, like hugging. But the ideological war and issues are still being brought up and are still being engaged with and are still inspiring people to get political and to get involved. And, the inspirational aspects of politics are still there. But there isn't the body count, which I think is a beautiful thing. But yeah, I think we are right to worry about levels of inspiration fading away, and this is, I promote skepticism a lot, but the other thing I promote lots is making sure that your artistic and scientific inspirational meters are operating at full, and I think that's enough to pick people, even people who suffer from major clinical depression, pick people off the couch and have them pursuing pleasure. Hopefully moral pleasure.
Well, the only problem with that is, how do you maintain artful endeavors?
Well, it's work, right? It's a lot of people. There's the easy version of it, which is only going to get you to like a 6 or 7 out of 10, and that's taking in Netflix, listening to music, and that's all fine and dandy. But I want to see people get to the Joe Rogan level of artistic and scientific inspiration, where it's bleeding off him, or The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. It's bleeding off of them so much that people cannot take their eyes off them because they want to be inspired like they are. And the reason why they've achieved that is because they've as far as I can tell, they've achieved 10 or even sometimes breach an 11, which I don't think is a good thing. You want to keep it at 10, level 10 of scientific and artistic inspiration in your life. And that includes practicing art, not
Exactly,
just
that's-
taking it in, the practice and the creation. And also on the scientific side, a lot of people don't realize this, but I'm talking about going out hiking, going out exploring the environment, getting exercise, pushing the limits of your biology. Like all of this stuff is part of that. And I, whenever I talk to someone who's feeling depressed or going through a depressive episode, or even suffering from major clinical depression, I am able to categorize their problems into those two categories when it comes when we're talking about inspiration in their lives. And someone like me who suffers from severe clinical depression, major depression, it's something you have to consciously work on and wrestle with, and you have to make that a pleasurable wrestling match, a pleasurable pursuit to be at war with what's happening to you psychologically. And so I hope
traditionally black people have been, Jesus Christ.
One thing I hope to do is upgrade some of the practices and ways that we approach hardware issues, software issues, and issues where I think fulfilling those inspirational meters will actually add a lot to someone's well-being. And that's what my books, or my first book, that's kind of what it's about. So
that's awesome. I think someone that's had the kind of the same road and similar roads of challenging, with depression and other conflicts of reality. I think there's something to say in there when it says like having the tools to overcome the challenges. Nothing will ever test me harder than me, right? So if I've tested myself to the brink, then every other challenge is not welcome.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you would rate your depression as like the hardest thing ever, right? You against you, war against, like, it's internal war.
Yeah, I would say for my well-being, it would be the hardest thing, but it's weird. Consciously, I would probably say other things, which I won't say here, but I would say other things outside of my control, even though, everything's outside my control, but I would say other, in the colloquial sense, things in other people, disturbed me more than my own depression. But
really?
Yeah, definitely. But from if I am to try to objectively look at my own well-being, I would say, well, the biggest threat to it always is this disorder, brain disorder of major depressive disorder.
Yeah, I think I can face anything. I don't think what I face will be enjoyable, but I think that I can overcome anything.
I think I've finally landed on a diagnosis of what my disorder is. I just found out I'm bipolar.
Yeah. Did you
sure.
Did you get diagnosed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just a few days ago.
And what was that?
Like a week or two ago.
What was that like hearing that? Was it kind of a revelation for you?
No. I've always kind of known something's been broken in some way, so I've been trying to get my I've known for a while now that it actually has to be something for real. So like right now I'm kind of getting hyped up, sorry.
That's all right.
But I'm learning how to recognize it, and that's what it is. And I was doing it really well for a while there when I first came to the server. But then had a big life change, and it made it more difficult because I kind of went into the depressive side of it. And then now I'm working on doing it again. So it's kind of been nice, but kind of more helped my other relationships because now I can prove to my family with medical help not just my own study of my brain
Right.
and what might be going on with me, which I was off. I was wrong, but
Right. Yeah,
I
no,
didn't have
it's
anything to go off of.
yeah, you just mentioned you were off and you were wrong. One of my favorite things, and I don't let people get away with. So here's one thing I've noticed in my life: people want to get away with calling people wrong or incorrect all the time. But one thing I have always stood very strong to is making sure I don't let people get away with that if I actually think I am in fact right. But one thing I will say to add to that is one of the most exciting things in my life, and I froth at the mouth for it, is being shown where my thinking failed me and where I was in fact wrong.
Exactly.
Because it's not enough for me ever. It sparks my interest so much when someone says, Pangburn, you're wrong about this thing, or you're wrong about that. And sometimes when I'll go at that, I'll be very excited and full of excitement to delve into this with them. And when I get to that excited state, if I see that their reasoning behind what they said is just crap and it's like full of fallacy and it's just nonsense, then my skepticism will display itself. But those times that I can think of where you were demonstrated to be wrong. It's like I brought this up with Lawrence Krauss during his Q&A, where he was wrong about the Higgs boson particle, where he didn't think it would be found because it was too simple. It was too, just too simple, too basic, too predictable, too all of those things. And he was sure about it. He talked about it a lot in lectures and in talks, and then they found it, right? I think that intellectuals and people who are pursuing a career in intellectualism, philosophy, science, they shouldn't be afraid to make strong claims as they move through this journey, especially about the unknown, or the I don't knows that exist out there. And they shouldn't be afraid to make these strong claims and then create strong arguments for them. And not be afraid to, when someone comes along and says, oh, that's all pseudoscience and pseudoscientific. It's like, okay, which part is pseudoscientific? And then they don't give you a strong argument. There's a lot of that out there. But the person that comes along and demonstrates how and why you are wrong on this, those are powerful, formative moments for me in my life, and I value and cherish those like you wouldn't believe.
It sounded like you just
I agree with you.
Hey, change my mind segment, but it was about like, I'm wrong, don't change my mind, but change my mind.
Well, I think to simplify what I'm saying is that the things I talk about, when someone genuinely comes with an exact quote from me, an exact well-read understanding of what I've said, and then they make an actual demonstration as to how what I said was incorrect, that fascinates me. Because with the way my skeptical foundation is structured, I think, and also in the way that I use language, I'm very careful to be as non-committal as a skeptic as I can be in areas, especially in areas that we don't know. We have the I don't knows, and this is why I've been very hush hush on the specifics of my first book and my second book, and because I want to release it all in just one flood, so people can create their rebuttals and their responses. But yeah, I guess it's just a commentary on how I see discourse playing out in the past 5 or so years.
Become very difficult to navigate.
Yeah, I think the hardest part, like I said, which is if you're going to practice those things, you have to be humble yet confident, because what's going to happen is a lot of people will justify why they do the things they do, and their brain is trying to justify. It's natural for you want to justify. And I'm not saying you do this Pangburn on a kind of overusage or incorrectly, which you probably do on some level, like everybody, but we all try to justify within ourselves of why we're doing something rather than I'm wrong, let me fix it. A lot of people try to justify and go through a process during a conversation, and I think it's hard. I think it really is. That's why I say most times when people need to change their mind, especially about something serious like epistemology, it is never time to change their mind in a conversation. You have to plant a seed. You have to put a thought in for them to figure out later and meditate. Hopefully they work on, because getting past someone's ego that they're going to just, and that's okay to have an ego, but for them to, try to work it through, I think takes time. We had a conversation where I was like, I think this is my version of free will. And you said, well, maybe you're agnostic because you think this way. And I immediately said, okay, I'm agnostic, because you gave me the 2 points of where I was at. We were able to explain them. And then I know from my agnosticism and many other things, I'm in the middle. Then I will rephrase to say, I don't know where free will comes from. And I don't think anybody can explain to me where it comes from. It's where does the nature of you and where does the nature of a person come from? It's hard. And so I think for me to say that really quick, I go, yes, that's awesome. I got to say I'm agnostic towards free will, and I have an answer. And I think that's really cool, is to finally say, cool, now I know, instead of like, where am I? I don't know. To say agnostic is I don't know, but it's better than floundering.
It gives you a name and validity rather than I don't know. If I don't know, we're more accepted, like Travis was saying earlier, then you wouldn't have needed that.
Yeah, and so that one's easy because we're middle road kind of thing, and we can speak to each other on those terms. But most of the people that you're in conflict with, get in there, plant a fucking seed, and run.
Yeah, I just my process is quite simple. When I'm engaging in a conversation or I hear a conversation going on, I'm listening to the arguments being made, the language being used, someone, and if so, and the also questioning and continuing to question what's happening. Are the rules of logic being followed? Are people tripping up? What's going on? What are the another thing I'm always aware of are the aptitudes of who's having a conversation. I think generally I listen for IQ, which you can listen for. It's really hard. It's not something you're going to be 100% accurate with or something, but you can get a pretty good idea about where someone lands on the IQ spectrum when you're having a conversation with them. And taking into consideration all of that, I think people on their personalities are always going to be there in the conversation, but I don't want their personalities to get in the way of their skepticism. And I see that happen a lot, and not just at the.
What does that mean?
Well, their personality of. I'm
right, you're wrong.
No, their personality, like someone who is typically quite agreeable. like the agreeableness personality trait is quite high, they will find themselves being very agreeable to a demonstrably, and I don't say they're agreeing with it, but they will be acting agreeable where they should be going to war with the idea. In the way I like to see, constructive discourse roll out. And when I say, and again, when I say war, I mean the intellectual warm blanket. War, ideological war, meaning the kind that you sit down with a cup of hot cocoa with your interlocutor and you're sitting calm in front of a fire. Like, it's like that. That's what I mean by war of ideas. So I worry sometimes that there is an element of, and it's mostly, I think it's mostly I have a problem when I hear mostly agreeable people chat, because there's a way to be disagreeable, and perhaps a good example of this would be listening to my conversation with Jared Taylor or my conversation with Jesse Lee Peterson. There is a way to be disagreeable in conversations and not be an asshole. Now, some people will look at disagreeability and it will feel like the person's being an asshole to them. And I don't want to validate those emotional reactions. But yeah, I just want people to have the courage to allow their skepticism to encourage them, inspire them to speak up and call out the fallacy. No more of this, they have their argument and I have mine. Let's all just, it's like people use that all the time. They'll hear two people butting heads ideologically on something, and they'll be working out the problem. And then someone will jump in and say, you guys are talking past each other. It's a failsafe that people go to all the time. And that's not necessarily the case if people are tripping over each other trying to, that's just part of the battle that's going on, the ideological battle. And not all of that is bad or deconstructive.
I would add to that sometimes refining a point that is very pedantic and very close, because when you're talking about things like that, like the mind or what happened before time or however, any of those massively difficult topics to talk about, you get this, no, that's not what I'm saying. You're because it's me trying to tell you what's in my head, and I'm frustrated with myself because I can't say it. And then this third party's like, what are you guys arguing about? Oh my God, no, he's this.
The word,
that. Like, whoa,
and sometimes
we're in a flow right now. We're actually doing work, and it can start to sound like a fight. And
I know, and people,
it's like a telepathy.
Me and my
unless
younger,
you're brought into it, you can't understand it.
Yeah, sorry to I was talking to you
fine.
there, but me and my younger brother, this happens all the time. We get into this passionate chain link exchange that just is. It's perpetual back and forth, and we get into this rhythm, and sometimes the rhythm will go up, the passion will go up. Sometimes it'll come down. It'll go down really low, and then the passion will come up back to but I think as long as what's driving that conversation when it comes to emotionality is passion and not anger, regret, bitterness. Oh God, I don't want to have conversations with bitter, sour people anymore. So bitterness, sourness, jealousy. Okay. Got to talk about this. Talking about philosophy today. Jealousy. And what I mean by jealousy, Grim, let's say you were, let's just say that there was someone in the room that would love to see you get your ass handed to you in a debate on something.
Okay.
Why would that person want to see you get your ass handed to you in a debate?
Because of a way I have negatively affected their life.
Right. And if you bring that into a conversation, if you bring that into a room, Douglas Murray, Eric Weinstein, and a bunch of us who were in Australia together, they enlightened me to this problem, and it's called the cunt problem. And what the cunt problem is that you could have a room of 25 genuine players in a conversation, in a battlefield of ideas, and one of those people could be the cunt in the room, and that one person, their cuntiness can actually destroy what would otherwise be a battlefield for a war of ideas, and it becomes about them to satisfy some kind of emotional hang up that they have going on. And jealousy, I see as a very big one all the time in rooms. It
Really?
Yeah, I see it. I see it where, for instance, you might have someone who's well read, often right about things, and they like not much slips by them. And then someone might bring some kind of in theater, it's called, like when you go to theater rehearsal, you're supposed to peel your reptile at the door before you go into that rehearsal, meaning that you don't come into that room to dump any of your emotional baggage on anyone else, because that's not their job. That's not what they're there to do. So you don't expect that of other people in the room, and if you care about your contributions, you will do everything in your power, including not engage and leave, to not dump that on other people.
In California, we call it the vibe.
the Californians.
Don't fuck up the vibe. You know, you could be smart, you could be dumb. It doesn't matter. Don't fuck up the vibe.
Yeah, no, it's
you're messing up.
And that's the colloquial way to put it. I just think it's not addressed enough. People are too agreeable to like, oh, okay, that's that person's. Sometimes people will be like, well, it's not my fault. That's my personality. I just don't know that was, an off the wall thing to say or ask or whatever. But I want people to take that time to peel the reptile.
That reminds me of people that complain without proposing a way for a solution is called whining.
Yes. Like Dwight, a good vignette of that is when Oscar and Kevin in the office are trying to move this heavy ass desk, and Dwight's like, you guys should be using a hand truck for that, and they're like, well, do we have one? He's like, no.
Yeah. It's you see that a lot, but I think that you didn't say the number one issue. What do you think I think I know what the number one issue is, but what do you think the number one issue is when you have a room full of discourse or open, honest, discourse? It's the number one,
number one issue. I mean, I would say, if we're talking about emotion, I would say, probably fear, and I think it's likely in discourse. It's a lot of people are afraid of having something they've believed for their entire life exposed and shit on, just like it's nothing, and it still means something to them. So coming into a room where people are openly having conversations about things, and this happens with people who have religious convictions all the time, they might have gotten to a point where they can say like, oh, whatever they say, they're not going to shake my faith anyway, so I'm going to go in there as a warrior for God. And those people will have an easier time doing that. But people who are genuinely wanting to know what is actually going on in reality, I think there's going to be an element of fear in the room for them. And fear can obviously lead to anger and all these stuff. This stuff
And
can grow
anger
out of that.
leads to hate.
Sure.
Hate leads to the
Yeah.
dark side.
No, it's totally, man.
It's that I would consider myself a Jedi. Like I don't feel that any of that is any less proper than any other what anyone would use as a Bible to.
No,
I mean, take the good ideas, like you said. Who cares who said it? If it's a good idea, take it.
Yeah,
and that's what I do.
I always like Dune for that.
Would you
in
say
Dune? I said I always liked Dune for that because in Dune, it's fear is the mind killer, and that's to me that's a brilliant line. Fear is the mind killer.
You know what's interesting though about fear is that it plays a, it's actually it's the opposite of a killer. It leads us to living in a lot of our evolutionary history, which is interesting. But yes, for rational discourse, man, if you're afraid of losing your faith in whatever thing, that's going to be an emotional hang up for anyone, I think.
Or if also
I think
the
on
thrust
that,
of your
on that
argument
note,
being made.
What's
Just real quick, Desire,
Yeah.
to say also that the thrust of the argument that you're making is based on fear,
Right.
it's the same thing in my mind.
Yeah.
You could be coming up with the most rational explanations, but you're starting from a place that's irrational. So everything that goes forth from that is going to be irrational.
Well, yeah, and I think, look, I mean, rationality is going to either stand up to skepticism or not, and if it's not, it's going to be irrational. So, fear's for us, and we're obviously sitting on the shoulders of giants. Fear, it's so luxurious for us that we don't need to use fear as kind of a litmus test for
we
things.
use fear as entertainment.
Yeah, I mean, fuck, man, we do. We watch it, and
Horror
humanity has done
time.
that for quite a few thousand years now, like with the gladiator thing, and it's just all the the whole aspect of not being able to look away from a car accident idea. It's kind of that same thing. It's like we are afraid of it. We're afraid of the idea of it, but there's a pleasure payback from watching the horror slasher film that we really enjoy engaging with.
Well, so how long have things like Day of the Dead and Halloween and this kind of stuff been going on, where people like intentionally go out to like haunted houses? Obviously there was different
Here's
back
my
then.
question.
Yeah, long time, man.
Based off that, Scott, was Anubis a horror character?
I'm not sure.
specifically, but you see what I'm saying? Are some of them like horror legends that got turned into gods or something?
Anubis was a process of life, like the Grim Reaper. So it was like he collected, but he also helped as well. So
That's the thing. I think to your point, though, Desired, I bet, I don't know if this is exactly your point, but I bet in ancient Egypt, there are people, they probably, for Anubis Day or whatever it was, they'd go around and scare kids. And,
Scott,
maybe not specifically Anubis, but someone.
Yeah, exactly.
They did. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a hieroglyph that is like, we've got Jesus as God, right? Like that's not a fictional character for Christians. Like he's real, but these other fictional creatures are. Like you can have your God and fictional creatures. I wouldn't be surprised if some of those hieroglyphs weren't gods, but were just horror characters.
here's your answer. Everything's been used for fear.
Right.
There's your answer.
Well, I mean, you can say that God just is a horror character itself.
Clowns
but that's not the point I'm making.
Yeah,
I'm making an actual, like, everybody understands the concept. This
Yeah,
is a story.
clowns, children of the corn, specters, spirits, the sun, every fucking inanimate thing, the goddamn killer rock. You want me to bash your head in with this?
Did you guys see Rubber?
What's that, Dal?
Did you see Rubber on Netflix?
Rubber? No.
Yeah, it's a killer telekinetic tire. Rolls around killing people.
Oh my god.
Did you see that? Did you see that killer tire come out of that thing? What was that, like a year or two ago, where dude was standing on the front porch or whatever, and the tire comes
Yeah,
out?
that's fucked up, man.
It just destroys the back of his head.
Yeah.
There's your killer tire right there.
Yeah.
That thing's
Those
real.
things are heat-seeking
I'm
missiles.
a believer.
Dude, there's a
I'm
lot
a
of
believer.
videos like that.
Yeah, there's that GIF.
He's at like a gas station
Yeah, I
and this
saw
tire
yeah.
comes up and jacks him up, man.
Yeah, there's this chick too. She's waiting at a bus stop, and this tire, like, it looks like it's going way wide, but then she looks away from it for a second, and then it does this like full fucking cylindrical circle back to her, and it just like cranks her in the back. It's terrible.
Man.
Yeah.
Well, I think taking it back, I think the number one issue in discourse as people conversate is ego. I think especially amongst those who are secular have an ego issue.
Ego issues.
Yeah.
I can see where you're coming from with that.
I probably agree with you, but you would have to define ego, because
Yeah,
I'm recently
and how
learning that
much-
term means something way different.
Yeah, because when
When
people say ego, I think what they mean is the id, because the ego is supposed to be like the pure part, but the id is your desires, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's the mistake I tend to make, I think. And I don't want to say the id. I think I like the word ego, but you just got to be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, there's like the colloquial understanding in this sort of colloquial language versus how Freud would have spoke about something can be different.
Exactly.
So, because ego has been adopted to basically mean overconfidence or an inflated self-importance or something like that. And these diagnoses of labels on people just thrown around willy-nilly, I hate that shit. Like, someone will be displaying confidence in a room about an idea, and they'll be engaging and defending their position, and then someone will be like, wow, that person's very egotistical about that topic. It's like, no, they're fucking not. They're defending. They've defending themselves. Demonstrate how they're being egotistical. It sounds like it's just sour grapes, and it sounds like you weren't able to eradicate their idea like you thought you were going to be able to, and then you're just calling it ego because your butt hurts.
Well, I think.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that feeds exactly what you were talking about earlier.
That's what I was. Yeah.
with
definitely.
with the meritocracy and the credentialism and
Yeah.
all-
Argument from
like,
authority.
I'm an anti-credentialist. I don't think. I mean, I believe it's important and it's needed. Like, you need to have regulation and pass tests and stuff, but not held as the end all be all.
Well,
Like,
it shouldn't. The mistake is, and I agree. Of course, we want to have brain surgeons with credentials. But when it comes to the argument doesn't care if it's a piece of dog shit making the argument or Richard Dawkins. It doesn't care. The argument stands on it. Oh, speaking of dog shit, how's it going, Srejan? Actually, Srejan, you got to tell them your story about how someone became triggered about a joke you said, because I thought that was the funniest thing ever. But yeah, the argument itself, if anyone's saying, well, I'm going to go with this argument because it came from this PhD, you don't know what skepticism is. You're a cynic. You don't know anything.
yeah, I think you're more likely to fall into that trap. I don't know that, because it's helpful to, like, this guy did this amount of research to come to this conclusion as a point, so it's very difficult to separate. Sorry, I don't mean to be yelling. I think I'm yelling at you guys.
Well,
You're good, dude.
Scream louder.
I think it's more like the credentials lend the time that I, as a human, don't have the capability of doing. So
this is why we trust
citing your sources.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean those sources are right or necessary.
Yeah. So
it's just shorthand for here's what someone who had more time to dedicate came up with.
Yeah, so Desire, the important thing there is if you're having an argument with someone and they need to give you the sources, everyone should say, everyone should actually stop and say, let's investigate whether this is actually true or not. And quickly, because it doesn't take that much time to verify a claim, really. Because you can look at the scientific consensus, you can look at, you can look at a lot of things quite quickly and say, well, the scientific consensus is making the argument that this little factoid that you've brought to the conversation was actually eradicated and not considered valid on this basis by, it looks like everyone, including this organization. So what's your response to that? And then if they say their thing, like, well, no, this one scientist or whoever, they really think that this was important. It's like, well, okay, the scientific consensus disagrees, and it would be interesting if they could, put this into a theory and challenge the scientific consensus.
Where what you're describing is absolutely true, but then you're silencing, and I'm not saying you are, but I'm saying it's a fine line that gets walked between new discovery, and new idea.
But Desired, but please let me say that during that interlocking, you don't have to say, or the person presenting this new idea or this challenge, they shouldn't feel like if someone thinks that the idea they're onto is just crap, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't necessarily pursue it. It just means that you haven't convinced that person yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like
okay,
and funders like it might be hard to find funding for someone like maybe Dog Breath or Rob would like to try and demonstrate why whites shouldn't live with blacks. It might be, he was talking about it, that it's hard to find funding for stuff like that. And I'm like, well, why do you think?
Wait, he actually said that to you?
Well, he said, he talked to me in DMs about how, like, these race difference studies and how they play out and what we should do about it. Like, he's like, these things, it's hard to get funding for these. And I'm like, because I don't think most people find this kink as compelling as you do.
I think, yeah.
I mean, that's all I could say. Like, and that's what I say to Jared Taylor, even after the show, behind the scenes, whatever. It's like, I understand, like, that this is, your skin color and this stuff is quite, you love it, you lust after it. But it's like, I think this is just a kink, and it's not as widespread as you think it is.
He likes it real creamy and milky.
He likes it really white, man. I'm telling you. Anytime I said white, his eyebrows flickered to the sky.
Yeah, I found that, like, I didn't get to talk to Robin for very long. We had, like, half a conversation. But I could already tell that he identified with white.
Right. Well, the thing about and here's an interesting thing about skepticism. Rob is actually a very good skeptic. But that doesn't mean that, like for instance, you could, Ben Shapiro is a very good skeptic, but he has some things hey, Srijan, I'm getting your feedback there. Can you mute?
Oh, sorry. Could I just say one thing really quick?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, so I'm giving my chemistry exam right now, and so could you guys help me out a bit?
Fuck.
Yeah.
Why don't you know the material?
Cheating, Srijan.
All things are one. There we go.
Now, as the type of server this is, now we have to have a 45-minute conversation on the ethics.
The ethics of cheating.
On cheating. So you
why
might
wouldn't
just get it done,
Srijan, you might be better off just Googling what you're looking for.
Actually, I have a few guys doing my work that. But it'll be better if more people. 24 is joined on exam.net.
There you go.
Jesus Christ.
Datta Gautam is not joined.
The hell is going on?
All right, Srijan.
There's a clip for you, Pangburn.
Yeah, it's rolling. We got Catholic traditionalists in the room. How's it going, Catholic? So,
Hey, how's it going?
Jan, mute yourself, please. Thanks. Yeah. Well, we're talking philosophy today. You got anything interesting, Catholic?
Are all of you philosophers?
Well,
What does that mean?
I would say anyone
Who
who
isn't
is
a
talking and engaging in the ought at this level, we could call them armchair philosophers. Sure.
I could talk about football.
Okay.
Not football.
Now I'm looking at the people that you have in the server. I see Mr. Batman and Matt Slick is in this. Two of those that's in the
I'll be
server.
talking to Matt Slick on January 6th, by the way. Hope you're around for that.
Well, I'm glad you're speaking to him. I wish it was on a different date because there's so much going on with regards to politics on January 6th. I think that's when Trump's going to get in there finally. He's going to be reelected on January 6th.
You think he's getting? Do you honestly believe that, Catholic? That would be.
I do.
Not,
well, constitutionally, Mike, it all depends on Mike Pence if he goes through with it or not, because he constitutionally does the counting of the electors. And since Republican electors went ahead and voted for Trump in those particular, states where all the corruption took place, if he goes ahead and counts those particular Republican electors instead of the Democrat electors, the only recourse constitutionally that the Dems can engage in is to contest his counting. But the problem with that is if they contest his counting, the only relief they have is to negate all the electors, both Democrat and Republican, in that state. If that happens and they go state by state like that, Trump wins.
Holy fuck. I haven't heard that take yet, man. Holy shit. Can you imagine though, guys?
Well, think about it. Why do you think that the Republican electors voted? Think about it for a moment. What point would it be for them to vote? But they did.
Because somebody can be a Republican and not be a Trump loyalist,
right? Yeah.
But these are definitely Trump loyalists. I mean, they went out of their way yesterday to vote for Trump.
One thing I would say, Catholic, is a lot of those Republicans are democracy purists, and they're going to want to adhere to the rules of democracy.
Sure,
regardless of
they
other
would
people
be adhering.
Sure.
Yeah. They would be adhering to the rules of a republic because that's what we're under in the United States. It's not a pure democracy.
No,
it's
I know.
Republic.
It's a republic democracy. There is a combination there.
And based on the Constitution, if Pence was to carry this out, Trump would theoretically become president.
Yeah, I perhaps you're right. I just I can't imagine, the vote count. I mean, there's got to be some Supreme Court challenge that would come in and veto that.
No, the court has no say. The Constitution makes clear that the courts have the judicial branch has no say in this. This is purely the role of the vice president and Congress. It has the judicial branch is excluded completely from this.
So Congress. So no judicial branch, but sorry, I'm Canadian, but Congress surely would step in and say, count the fucking votes.
Well, they would. Well, they would. They can constitutionally they can contest what Vice President Pence is doing,
right.
But again, if they contest it, both a member from the House and a member from the Senate, and they vote on it, and they both agree, and it comes out that they contest it, and it's validated that they contest it, the only recourse is that all the electors from that state is negated, which again, Trump would win in that case.
How? Why? If all the electors were negated, why do you think Trump would win?
Because neither Biden or Trump would get to the 270 needed to become president, and therefore it would have to be a state by state vote in order to determine who is the president. And you go state by state with regards to the number of states that voted for Trump compared to the number of states that voted for Biden. If you only go by the number of states, Trump wins because Trump won more states overall than Biden.
That even makes sense to go by the number of states.
Well, that's what the Constitution says.
That's well, yeah, but look, Catholic, there are fail safes in place to make sure that no vice president dickhead is going to dictate who
What's the
next
fail
president
safe?
is.
The
What's
only
that?
fail safe is for the Dems to get their guns out and try to commit a civil war against us that support Trump. But that's the only fail safe.
Well,
There is
What do you
no
mean?
other fail safe in the
What are you
Constitution.
saying? Everyone, like, the courts have agreed. Like, it's over. He lost. Like, the end.
No, the courts have never said that he lost. They're simply not taking up the case.
right.
Yes,
That-
because it's useless and he lost.
And there's no evidence.
It's a waste of time.
So
Yeah, there's plenty of evidence of fraud. I mean, it's ridiculous to say
you
there's
think
no evidence
there
of
is. That
fraud.
doesn't mean there is.
If
The
there's
professionals
evidence
that
of
look at
fraud,
it say that they
Yeah.
aren't. If you want
Would
to
you
be
like me to go into
credentialist,
some of the evidence of
trust in what
fraud?
credentialists
So-
say.
It would have been presented to courts, and courts would have taken it
No,
up.
it wasn't. It wasn't presented to the courts because the courts said they had no standing,
So
so
there
they
were
wouldn't
hearings.
even take it up.
So
That
there were hearings, but this was all Catholic. From what I could tell, I listened to the hearings. From what I could tell, this was all eyewitness testimony, and the follow-up claims to that was that if only the evidence hadn't been deleted or destroyed, we would have had evidence.
No, there's still evidence. The evidence is on video. The evidence is testimony. The
Okay.
evidence is affidavits, and the evidence is the machines, the voting machines themselves.
Yeah. So
This has all been presented
yeah. So this is
and
all.
found wanting.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think there's, and there are some extraordinary claims being made by some of these people coming out, but even in the video evidence, Catholic, it's not evidence of fraud. It sometimes is evidence of perhaps a volunteer making a mistake with process or something.
Or misinterpretation, video evidence of the guy pushing, like, rolling the card, right? And people thinking that they'll look a bunch of votes being rolled in when it's actually
it's
like
evidence of unlawful activity because
So
when
Catholic-
you go ahead and you count, well, hold on, it's evidence of unlawful activity because when you count the ballots, by law, the Republican side is supposed to be there to witness the both sides are supposed to be there to witness the counting of the counting of ballots.
One at a time, guys. Okay, Catholic, just finish off the tail end, and then we'll jump around.
Yeah. So in other words, what they did was unlawful.
Right. So can I just want to say, if someone did something unlawful, then they should be charged for it. But even if they did do something unlawful, it's not necessarily evidence positive of voter fraud. But let's go first to Underjoyed. What do you have to say?
No, I was just saying, like, a lot of the evidence seems either hearsay or things that are misrepresented in terms of, like, look if things going on, like, some guy rolling a card in and it ends up being like batteries, but people think it's votes, and no matter what, like, okay, like an entire election, I have no doubt there's some things that might have gone wrong, and but to say that anything that might have gone wrong is either favoring the Democrats or Republicans, and it's enough to swing a vote. This is an extraordinary claim. So if one or two people say had fraudulent votes, they got found out that, hey, there's this guy in this one town that, filed votes for their dead grandmother that died 2 months ago. This isn't any sort of evidence that Trump should have won the election. Like, we're talking about someone that lost the election by like 7 million votes, right? Like, we're talking about a landslide victory. To say that there's enough votes that are being conspired, that there's
you don't know that
swath of conspiracy.
Go ahead.
You don't know 7 million. You don't know he lost by 7 million votes because those votes could be fraudulent.
So here's the problem.
Like I said,
Catholic,
you don't. Well, hold on. Wait, I don't know if they heard me. You don't know that he won by 7 million votes because those votes could be fraudulent. And let me say this: with regards to the Dominion voting machines, would you say that the Dominion voting machines are on the up and up?
When was the first time you talked about Dominion voting machines, Catholic?
I don't know. I'm talking about it right now. So would you say that it's on the up and up?
First time you talked about Dominion voting machines, was it yesterday?
I don't know. I just said I don't know. You want to answer my question or not?
So just 2 seconds.
I don't think anybody here has any expertise on Dominion voting machines.
Well, we can do some research, fact checking while we're here.
Great. If you don't have any, wait. If you don't have if you don't have any information on the Dominion voting machines, then how can you say that there wasn't any fraudulent activity with regards to the Dominion voting machines, or with regards to the election process, whereby Biden got elected, and that everything was on the up and up?
So the burden of proof, Catholic.
They don't
Yeah.
want
Yeah,
to look at it because it doesn't meet the burden of proof.
Just 1 sec.
Great. So the burden of proof is to show that there is a problem with the Dominion voting machines, correct?
Right. Yes.
So if it's shown that there's a problem with the Dominion voting machines, then wouldn't you question the Dominion voting machines?
No. So if there is a problem with a Dominion voting machine, then
not A. I didn't say a Dominion voting machine. I said Dominion voting machines in general. Would you admit that if these Dominion voting machines are all throughout the country in different states, that poses a problem?
Yeah, if there is a problem with the machines, like a demonstrated problem, then the problem needs to be rectified. Now, if the problem may or may not relate to, however, the tabulation of the votes that are being input, it might just be some other problem, right? Scott,
right. So now, if it shows in not just one state but several states that the votes are being changed from Trump to Biden, never in reverse from Biden to Trump, but only Trump to Biden, then would that be a problem? Would that be a big question mark with regards to the election?
That's an easy answer for all of us.
Correlation, causation.
Yeah, so that would be an easy answer, that if it was demonstrated that a machine that was supposed to be tallying the votes, if it was giving votes from one side back to the other side for which the people did not vote for, then of course everyone in this room is going to say, yeah, that's a problem.
That's bullshit.
Okay, so do any of you follow the news? I'm not talking about the left-wing media news. Do any of you follow actual news about the Dominion voting machines and the testing? Hold on, I'm not finished. I didn't finish with my question. I'm sorry, I didn't finish with my question. I didn't finish with my question.
Yeah, let Catholic ask.
So, have any of you, besides the left-wing media outlets, have any of you looked at the actual testing of the Dominion voting machines that have occurred? Any of you have you looked at the information?
I have a legitimate question before. I think any of us can answer that question.
Hold on.
When
hold
you
on.
say
question, what are you asserting?
Are you considering?
Desired 2 seconds. Scott, did you have something?
I mean, that's once you start saying ridiculous stuff of like, oh, the actual news, like, so you go right to a fallacy of the true Scotsman, and it's just it's everything right off the bat that you're going into.
Yeah, there was also a fallacy of shifting the burden of proof there, Catholic.
Okay, so here's a question with regards to the actual testing of the Dominion voting machines that was done, that the left-wing media isn't even reporting on. That's why I'm asking you whether you saw any news with regards to the actual testing that was done.
Continue with the argument.
Did you?
No, don't
excuse
ask
me. I'm not finished with my question. I'm not finished with my question.
And I'd like to answer.
I'm not finished with my question.
So Catholic, ask
with
one more question, and then we're going to go around the room. Okay.
Okay. So with regards to the actual news about the actual testing that was done on the Dominion voting machines, true or false? Did the Dominion voting machines switch the votes from Trump to Biden?
True. Just like they did Venezuela.
That's right. Exactly.
Okay. Was there more?
Now, anyone who wants to respond?
Well, I want to know, when you say left-wing media, I don't know what that means, because just recently I was
CNN
that Fox News is
he made the claim. And like so that entire rhetoric means nothing. He made the claim that the voting machines change votes from Trump to Biden. So that's the most important thing. His entire rhetoric about have you listened to the news that talks about, like, none of that matters. Like, the claim matters. His claim is that there are people that casted votes and on a machine that switched their votes from Trump to Biden. So what's the evidence?
Welcome.
Yeah, go to news. Yeah, go to Newsmax news, or go to go to One American News, or go to Fox News, or go to let's see another source.
What are the
what's the
primary
name of that
sources for the evidence, not the news?
Yeah, because the other ones aren't even. Yeah, because the other ones aren't even report. Excuse me, ask me the question. I'm trying to answer it. Because the other ones aren't even reporting on it. So the left wing. Excuse me, I'm not finished. Okay. So the other ones, the left wing media, that is, they're not even reporting on it. They're covering it up. Okay, just like they were covering up the whole Hunter Biden, laptop thing. The fact of the matter is, you cannot trust the left wing media because they won't report the news.
Catholic,
they're just a propaganda machine for the Democrat Party.
Catholic, I think you're misunderstanding something. He's asking you not for news at all. He wants primary sources. What?
Yeah, I'm. Listen to me. If you go to Newsmax and you type in Dominion voting machines, you'll see all the articles that they have there, whereby it actually shows that the judge in Michigan ordered that the Dominion voting machines be tested to find out if there was any fraud taking place or anything suspicious taking place. So this is what they did.
What was the ruling?
So this is. I'm not finished speaking. I'm not finished speaking. So this is what they did. They entered equal amount of votes for both Trump and Biden. Guess what happened when when the machine tabulated all the votes? Now this isn't just one Dominion voting machine. This is all the different voting machines. Okay. Guess what happened? Guess what happened when they tabulated the votes in each and every Dominion voting machine? What do you think happened? It came out 68% advantage. I'm sorry, 62% advantage above that of Trump in each and every one, even though it was equal amounts of votes fed into the machine for Trump and Biden.
Okay, we heard.
If it's so it was proposed to a judge, so it's a public trial. So you must have these documents, right? Like, this is a public trial that we're able to review, not a news article. You must have a link to this trial.
No, I don't have any links. Just go to Newsmax. If you're lazy, then don't bother with it. All right.
No, look, I mean, if a judge overheard this trial,
lazy. Don't call him.
Here's evidence.
Because he asked you for the site, and you didn't go to the site. You didn't find the link.
Okay, Desired.
You just trusted the news site.
Now
right?
it's Mr. Grimm's turn.
No, I was gonna say, Catholic traditionalists, didn't the Republicans and the Democrats also sign off on the Dominion voting machine counting votes?
Sure. There's a lot of Rhino Republicans that went ahead and certified the votes, and they're not even doing an audit. So the fact of the matter is, the fact that they're not doing an audit says everything. Why aren't they doing an audit? Why would they not do an audit in all of these states whereby fraud has or irregularities have taken place? Wouldn't it make sense to do an audit?
I want to go Catholic. Let Mr. Grimm go, and then I want to read something.
What I said is the parties themselves approved the Dominion Republic voting machines. They both approved that they will accept the result of what the Dominion voting machines say. They both approved that.
Okay, now my turn. Question asked here to the Dominion voting. This is clearing up the election 2020, setting the record straight. Is there any evidence of Dominion systems vote switching or software errors? Now I'm going to post this text after I read it in the text box here, and I would like to see if Catholic, if you have any rebuts here. So the answer is no.
Where are you posting it? Wait, where are you posting it?
I'll post the text right here in the hashtag live feed in Discord, and I just posted it, so I'm going to read it. No. All baseless claims have been debunked by election officials, subject matter experts, and third-party fact-checkers. No evidence whatsoever has been offered to support claims that there was a systemic problem with vote counting machines. A hand recount of all paper ballots in the state of Georgia, completed on November 19th, verified that machine vote totals were reliable and accurate. Certified results in Arizona, Georgia, Florida, Michigan, Nevada, Ohio, Pennsylvania, plus other states all validate the accuracy of the official tallies.
Great. Well, you can't do a hand recount of the electronic Dominion voting machines. Did you know that?
They disagree with you here.
Oh, they disagree? So can you? Yeah. So you're telling me that they can do a hand recount? How do you do a hand? I'm asking you this question. How do you do a hand recount of an electronic Dominion voting machine tabulation?
Just untrigger.
Think about it.
Untrigger yourself a little bit.
Is this Pangburn speaking? Who's speaking?
Yes, it is.
Use your common sense. Use your common sense. How do you do a hand recount of a tabulation from a Dominion voting machine?
By going through the logs of all the printed or that it keeps.
Great. So now think about what you just said. So whatever's printed is the tabulation results, correct?
Yeah, Catholic. Can I point something out?
Right. So hold on. So if the tabulation results, which I just told you, is showing based on what that judge ordered, the equal amounts of votes into the Dominion voting machines. This was done in Michigan, by the way, and it comes out to hold on. I'm not finished speaking, and it comes out to 62% for Biden over Trump. Then this would, when they're doing if they're doing a hand recount of anything that's printed out from that, I'm not finished.
Yeah, you're getting.
If they're doing a recount of if they're doing a hand recount of the tabulation from that voting machine, then they would obviously be doing a count from fraudulent activity from the what is the deal? Look, if I'm going to keep getting interrupted, I'll just leave. Do you want me to leave?
You usually do that anyway, man. You usually come.
So you want me to leave because I'm trying to get it out so that I'm trying to ask my questions for everyone. So if you're doing a hand recount of the printed tabulation from that machine, but the machine is automatically spewing out 62% in favor of Biden, even though equal amounts
were put
into the machine.
Why do you think that happened?
Excuse me. It's even though it's putting out 62% of equal amounts in the Dominion voting machine, then when they do the recount of that equal amount that's in the voting machine, both for Trump and Biden, then they would say, oh, well, look, Biden got 62% more votes than Trump. Hey, let's count that. Even though the actual votes was 50 for Trump, 50 for Biden.
I just searched what you're saying, Catholic. There's no information on what you're saying. Where are you getting this?
Come on. This just shows you got your ignorance. Oh my goodness. Look, guys, you need to go.
Tell me where to go.
Listen to me. I just told you where to go. Go to Newsmax. Go to One America Now. Go to Fox News. They went ahead and reported on this.
No, Fox News
didn't. It's in Michigan.
I just checked it.
It's in Michigan. Excuse me.
Cite your sources, man.
Okay, look, guys. If you want to live in ignorance, you're living in ignorance.
You have to bring your source when you make a claim.
Yeah.
You have to be able to bring your
source.
Well,
it doesn't make any difference anyway, because Mike Pence is going to go ahead and only count the Republican electors, and Trump is going to win anyway.
Catholic, I love you. I'm glad you stopped by.
Just like Napoleon Bonaparte, a dictator
is this live? Is this going to YouTube live?
It will.
Is all of this going to YouTube live?
Yes, it will.
On his side, correct?
Okay, well, you need to remove this from YouTube because I don't want it to get out so that the Democrats know about it. So I don't want them to know what Mike Pence is going to do on January 6th.
You crack me up, brother. I appreciate it.
That's awesome.
Now, why is Darth Darkins? Why is he not in this server? Why is he blocked from this server?
He's not blocked. He's afraid of me. He's afraid of me. He's not blocked.
He's not afraid of you. You know he's not afraid of me.
He actually said he told me that he was rejected, and then he ran. He's like, "Oh my God, Pangburn's here," and then he ran.
Okay, look, is he able to get back into the server?
Yeah, he's free to come back in.
So he's not banned. He's not banned.
No, he's not banned. He can come.
Who's paying you? So would you Pangburn, since you're going to go ahead and debate Matt Slick on January 6th, would you also be willing to debate Darth Dawkins?
No.
Would you set a date to
no,
debate Darth Dawkins?
Dawkins is bad faith, unhelpful, defamatory. He's all the things that are bad for a conversation. So no, I won't be having a conversation with him.
But you're in control. He's in control.
No, I don't care about.
I like Matt Slick.
But Matt Slick.
Sure, I like Matt Slick.
Matt Slick is good faith, helpful, and not defamatory. So I'll have a conversation with him.
Sure. I think Matt Slick does a very good job at debating atheists. But with regards to you'll
I'm
be
also
in
a
control
botanist.
if he goes on to your show.
Botanist.
Yeah, but do you understand that you'll be in control if Darth goes onto your show?
I don't care about
you can
control. I don't care about that. I don't care about having control. I care about having a good faith conversation. And if someone shows their inability to have that, I have no interest in. I would be happy one day maybe to I don't believe in throwing people or opportunities away forever, but I mean, as recently as a few months ago, Darth Dawkins came in the room and he just was all bad faith. I know. I invited him. I'm the one that invited him. Okay. What about Mr. Batman? Would you schedule a time to have a Mr. Batman on your broadcast? We already talked on my call-in show, and I think that was enough to sort through.
Yeah, but you hung up on him. Yeah, but you hung up. That wasn't I mean, why did you hang up on him?
Because he was engaging in.
Because you couldn't answer his questions.
No. He's not. Look, Catholic. He's not asking or saying anything that's new. Like if he's not bringing evidence of God forward like he thinks he is, and I'm happy to have conversations with new people, but to repeat with someone, it's got to be like I'm repeating with Jesse Lee Peterson. I'm going to be on his show next week because I found him to be an honest, decent man. I don't get that sense from Mr. Batman or from Darth Dawkins.
They don't engage in discourse. They engage in a script. They have a script, so no matter what you argue against, they don't address your concerns. They have a script, and they completely ignore what you're saying.
Yeah, everybody goes into a debate with a script. Every single person goes into a debate with a script because they're going into a debate. Excuse me. Let me explain why. Because everyone is going into a debate with their own presuppositions. So everyone is going in with a script.
Sure, but you can discuss them without fighting about them. And you coming in here trying to pick a fight on behalf of other people. That's not what this is about.
I'm just having a conversation. I'm not picking a fight. You're that's bearing false witness against my intentions.
Desired, you're a little off. But here's the problem, Catholic, is that Batman has been quoted by saying, "I do not ask a question I do not already know the answer to." He is there to preach, not to have honest, open discourse where questions are thrown back and forth, and for him to think about the questions and answers being presented.
Yeah, in my experience with Darth Dawkins, he railroads you into yes or no questions, and that's it. He doesn't let you.
Well,
he's using the Socratic method, so there's nothing wrong with using the Socratic method.
I agree. I agree with Catholic. If you're sometimes it can be interesting to engage with the Socratic method and go down that avenue. But the problem, Catholic, if it's only that, and I don't have areas, other areas, other gears to go to, that's when I get I don't really have a big drive to want to return to it. But I just feel like
there's sure. Now there's an up and coming apologist. He's on Discord, and he's actually a teenager, but I think he's gonna.
I'll have a conversation with any of them, Catholic, any of them. So
second come.
So if
you would,
if you just send me a DM of anyone you think would be interesting for me to have a conversation with, and I'll take a look at them and I'll book them on the podcast if I think they're
oh sure
a good idea.
Yeah, he has a YouTube channel. It's called Jonathan Talks, and but he's a teenager. He's actually 18 years old, but the guy is he's phenomenal when it comes to debating atheists. I mean, in Discord, he just run circles around the atheists.
Well, there's a lot of crazy people on all sides, man. But I like having good faith discussions, and I love meeting and talking to new people, especially when I get to have conversations with people where we disagree on some fundamental things about reality. So
yeah, conflicting points of view are amazing because it keeps you out of your own echo chamber. You don't want to surround all the people with the same mindset. You won't get.
No, my only prerequisite for repeats are, to some at least some elements of good faith, helpfulness, and
yeah, I think
no, you're all atheists.
Some of us.
There's a whole mix of a whole bunch of different stuff.
Yeah, I use the term atheist for the most part.
Yeah, I mean,
I kind of use the term panpsychist for now.
Wait, what? What?
Panpsychism.
What is that?
Look it up.
Well, you can't just tell me. I mean, fine, forget about it. I'm not even going to look it up. Forget about it. You're not going to tell me, then forget about it.
We don't do links here. You got to look it up.
I'm not going to look it up.
It implies that electrons are conscious, so fuck panpsychism.
Yeah. I just so everyone in the room, just so everyone in the
whatever you believe.
Just so
That's cool.
Everyone, just chill for a second. Just atheism and the way I see atheism used and believed by Dawkins, Harris, all the popular atheists and all the unpopular atheists, all the ones I've ever had conversations with, almost. Atheism is just simply the rejection of positive God claims about God's existence. Sometimes it's
and I believe in
gods.
friendship and love.
And I believe in fluid gender.
What's your thoughts on Matt Dillahunty?
Matt's a friend of mine. He's a hothead. I've never been a huge fan of Matt's emotional trigger ability, but he is a very, very good skeptic. Sometimes his skepticism gets hijacked by politics, which I don't like, or by trying to adhere to his audience, which again I don't like. But for the most part, Matt's one of the greatest skeptics out there.
I mean, honestly, Travis, for someone that doesn't have a post-secondary degree, that was able to have such a good discussion with someone like Jordan Peterson, which has a PhD in psychology.
That's why I put him on. That's why I put him on stage with him.
Yeah, I found that really impressive. Like, Matt is not stupid. Like,
no, Matt Dillahunty is an incredibly impressive thinker. Don't get me wrong. I'm listing my things about his emotional temper and how politics can sometimes infect his thinking, but
absolutely
on the whole, Matt Dillahunty is one of the greatest skeptics out there.
Yeah.
So
I don't think it's not that easy for someone without that level of education to have such insight like Matt Dillahunty, right?
No,
so for someone that that only graduated from high school, did he even graduate from high school? I'm not sure.
Yeah, he did.
He did. Yeah, so I mean,
I'm glad. Well, that's
there's
great,
very few
but I'm
people
glad
that
you're
are
not
able to
praising him like some atheists do. Some atheists they show their hypocrisy by speaking against Dawkins, but at the same time praising Matt Dillahunty.
Well,
but obviously, if you're gonna
try to get Matt Dillahunty,
so obviously if one is gonna talk to him for him, So obviously, if one is going to speak about against Dawkins because of the way that he treats individuals, then one would also have to hold the same point of view with regards to Matt Dillahunty.
Catholic,
absolutely.
So Catholic, you make a good point, and Matt's not the only one. There's a lot of people. I've probably done it before in my past of trying to moderate a room and maybe allowing my passion to get the better of me. But I think I look for frequency of this, and also in the way that this happens. Like for a skeptic, if a skeptic gets pissed because someone just keeps repeating fallacy after fallacy after fallacy after fallacy, and then they're like, "And you're fucking done," and then they hang up on them. I understand why they hung up on them. However, if someone goes into a room and they're just like, I have the answer. This is the answer. I already know the answer to any answer you will give. And it's just this like constant thing. That's a lot different than someone losing their temper on the other side. So there's potentially some bad faith, maybe little elements of bad faith there, but one is much worse than the other. Like one one based in, frustration over, not being able to deliver the poignancy of what you think is a strong skeptical foundation to the person you're sitting across. And then the other, it might feel like the other person's not even there to engage with you or listen to you. They're there just to preach,
Yeah, I think when it comes to Dillahunty, I've seen countless videos of him who he actually engages in intellectual discourse if someone is keeping up and wanting to keep up. When it becomes friction and someone is completely against and trying to tell him what to think and things like that, that's really not what his show is really for. And so you have a lot of confrontation there. I would say that somebody like him, I would agree with, but then you have the other case where it's like,
hold on. So the problem seems to be that with people that like pre-subs, like Mr. Batman with Darth Dawkins, they're like, you cannot argue against my position without a rational basis for your logic or anything like that. You need to presuppose God for that rational basis. And someone like Matt Dillahunty would never make that claim. It would never make that claim that you need to have the same beliefs I do to have a rational basis for intelligibility in your arguments. He wants to hear an argument. He doesn't care what basis or presuppositions you have. Regardless of your presuppositions, present me with an argument that's able to convince me. Mr. Batman or people like Darth Dawkins will never accept that argument. They'll say, if you don't agree with the things that I agree a priori, you're not able to even have a discussion.
Very salient, Underjoyed. Right. I agree with exactly what you just said. And I approach conversations the same. I am there to hear the arguments. And I want to analyze and talk about the arguments themselves. I don't care. I don't care. Like if it's an alien from another planet talking about something, I want to hear the
aliens
argument.
don't exist.
But here's what I'm trying to say. But here's the other side I'm trying to say is that people like Aaron Ra, I think, approach situations differently. They're very confrontational. It's very hard to have a good conversation. And I want people that create a good conversation. I don't like the way Matt Dillahunty has a good conversation. I like the way Eric Murphy does good conversations, but not
so. Graham,
Eric Murphy.
Just a question.
No, that's why I brought up Jonathan Talks. Jonathan Talks called up Talk Heathen, and he completely obliterated Eric Murphy. So you have a teenager obliterating Eric Murphy.
Okay, I love it. I love this fun flinging.
I don't know why Scorekeep like that.
But Grim, I just wanted to Desired. We'll go to you in a second. I just wanted to go to Grim. Said something that sparked something. Oh, about Matt. Grim, what did you think about how Matt engaged with at my event with Jordan Peterson?
I think that he's very good at holding his own when it comes to somebody that wants to enjoy a conversation. I think that he was nervous and that he could have done better because he even said so himself.
Yeah, I think.
Other than that, I enjoy conversations. Other than that, I enjoy conversations like that. I enjoy the way he handled it, the way it was moderated. He did a very good job. You have a situation where it's a call-in show and you have a pre-sup and they're just talking past each other. He's going to hang up on your ass, and it's just because he's already been through 1,000 of those. He knows where the conversation is going. It's hard to change his mind. Not.
Well, here's another problem with Dillahunty compared to some other people. How many hours on the internet of there are? How many hours of Dillahunty are in the internet? I mean, it's thousands because he's just done so much.
It's a point to say how many hours of Matt Dillahunty arguing the exact same argument.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. It's.
I mean, it's fucking crazy.
And I think some of that has jaded him over time. Travis, I think you're right. He is one of the greater skeptics out there right now, but I do think that he is a bridge to what R.N. Raw was necessary in the beginning, where R&R Raw needed this aggressive I'm in your face to be heard and get thinking started. Matt is a very good thinker that needed that to cut through, and he's learning how to get rid of it, or he needs to learn how to get rid of it because he's capable of getting rid of the anger.
R&R Raw's that guy that looks like Genghis Khan, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's him. He looks like Rip Torn and Dodgeball.
He looks like the Undertaker meets like the dork from biology class.
I think people,
especially when he's doing his evolutionary chart.
It reminds me of my older brother who loves death metal, but then it's hard to have conversations with.
What were you saying there, Underjoyed?
I mean, people accuse Arn of being really, philosophically ignorant and just horrible philosophy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Whenever he engages in philosophy, is terrible. But
I don't think so.
Really, I don't really agree with that. I think whenever he talks about things, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He admits it. Like when people ever bring up things like cosmology, first cause, he's like, I'm not a cosmologist. I'm not Sean Carroll. I'm not people that talk about these things. I'm educated in things like, evolution and things like biology. And these are the things that I want to talk about. And people just keep like maligning him in ways that I don't think are valid. Like in terms of the philosophy of like things like evolution, I think his arguments are really valid, and his criticism of things about Abrahamic religions that are antithetical to evolution, I think his arguments are completely valid, and I don't think he's philosophically bankrupt. I think he has really good philosophical reasoning, and I think people just accuse him of things that aren't valid. Like,
I don't think so.
Talking about Matt?
I don't think so, Underjoyed. I think that Aaron Ra is. I don't think that Aaron Ra is saying thing that is untruthful. He's extremely smart, and he's only going to say what he knows for a fact. And I think that he's very grounded in that. What I'm saying,
that's what I'm arguing.
Yeah, well, no, there is no argument. I agree with you completely. What I'm saying is that the way he handles himself. So I was just watching a debate with him last night in T-Jump, right? And so one of the Christian guys basically said, like, he said, "No, you're wrong." And Aaron Ra waited for a few minutes to get his turn in, and he went literally from like, "No, I'm not wrong. Here's why," and he laid it out, and then started yelling. He was the only one talking, and he started yelling, and he says. "So I'm right," and he like yelled it, and it was just like an awkward moment while everyone was kind of like, "All right, well that got really heated."
I think, and that kind of goes to what I was saying. I think back in the early days, that was necessary, and that flew. Like that wouldn't have been an awkward moment.
Yeah.
He got him. Maybe that's something I should think about. It's like, well, he just said some obvious shit. Why did he have to get so extra about it?
Exactly. And so that doesn't create, so therefore what you're doing is you're setting the tone, the vibe, man, of like, hey, nobody wants to talk to you because of the way you handle it. If he was just like, so that way I actually am correct, and I hope that helps you understand where I was coming from. And I said that there's a much easier way to handle that in a much easier kind of tone. And it makes people not want to talk to him. It makes people not want to debate him. You want to watch the debate because it's a fucking car crash. But at the same time, you're like, yeah, but it's not fun to.
I think that's why there's a new age of philosopher. Because I'll call Matt Dillahunty a philosopher, same as Jordan Peterson. All of the IDW I would call philosopher. I mean, if philosophy is talking about the concepts of being and I and am, and he gets paid to talk to people about those things, he's a professional philosopher. If you need to qualify it that way. But I think that Discord is a place where a new age with that, more like what Dalsu put in with Anthony Magnabosco's, like the street epistemology stuff is coming through. And I think conversation is becoming much easier, even across faiths.
Yeah, he's not a professional philosopher, professional debater.
Well, I believe he's taken philosophy courses in college and epistemology and all sorts of shit, and he gets paid to talk about it. Like, I'd say he's a philosopher.
Yeah. That's my point.
Guy. He's a master debater.
No.
Guys, well, I'm going to pull the philosophy show off the air, but I just want to thank you all for stopping by. I guess Catholic left. Thanks to Catholic. Anyone else who stopped by. Tomorrow, I will be talking to, just FYI, I have a podcast guest talking to my mom. My podcast guest is
Podcast
Dr.
guest is your mom.
Dr.
Nice.
Roman Rampolsky, and he is professor of computer science and engineering. In Louisville. I don't know what the education institution is. He's AI safety and security researcher. He's written a book on AI, so that'll be interesting. But that goes down.
What's he talking to you about?
11 a.m. Pacific. We'll be talking about a lot about AI tomorrow on the podcast.
Nice.
So that'll be
Sweet.
on YouTube at 11. If you can't catch it live at 11 a.m., just it'll be available once it clears the YouTube algorithm. So that'll be fun. I love chatting AI. But after that, on Thursday will be Science Day open mic, 5 p.m. same time again. So yeah.
Travis, I did want to touch base with you on a possible guest offline.
Yeah, cool. So send a DM. Anyways, thanks guys. Scott, I saw your email. I'm gonna go right now and listen to the tune, dude. I'm excited.
Nice. Yeah. Listen to it a couple times. Give me any feedback, and then I can do that master in like an hour.
Right on, brother. All right, thanks guys.
Thanks,
and,
Travis.
I'm glad you stopped by.
Thanks for
Underjoyed. Really appreciate it. Yep.
Later, guys.
All right, that was the philosophy open mic, Pangburn open mic. That was awesome. Really enjoyed it. We'll catch you in the next one. As always, let art and science inspire.